What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Radiovania's DCEU in review for potentially one of the last times in a long time. That's right. Throw it up, baby.
Oh, we got the Suicide Squad this year.
That's true. We do have the Suicide. It's not over quite yet, but
it's not over till it's over.
This is Radiovania's rewatch podcast. We're going back through all of the DC Cinematic Universe movies, starting from Man of Steel and now ending at the latest Wonder Woman, 1984. I'm at Zach Rotello on all the socials and whatever. And then sitting across from me on Themyscira digitally is John Swansong Parker.
What's going on, man?
You know, not much. This is exciting because we watched this movie I watched this movie on Christmas Day, and it took you a couple extra days to get around to it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I watched it the day after Christmas. I had a little bit of a crazy Christmas day.
Yeah, and so after John sends me a text at like 3 a.m. my time in Ohio, and it just says, "Watch WW84," and I just said, "Don't say anything." I want to go into this completely blind. So this is exciting. We're gonna get to it here in a sec, but neither John or I have told each other.
We haven't even told
anything.
each other. Yeah, we haven't even told each other if we like it.
I wanted to try and replicate. So I don't know if I was explicit in this, but I wanted to kind of try and replicate the experience of going to a movie, like in the theater, because it's an experience that I complain about movie theaters all the time, but I do kind of miss that experience, like going to see a big action movie or a comic book movie or a Nolan movie and walking out and being able to like talk about it. And I think that that's half the fun of the theater experience. And so I wanted to try and replicate that. So for our friends, for anybody that's watching that hasn't, gotten to discuss, hopefully this is a little bit of that experience for you. Maybe a little bit of therapy. I don't know. We'll decide later.
Maybe.
So yeah, thank you guys for dropping by. This, like I said before, this is Radiovania. This is our weekly podcast. Usually is like news, pop culture updates, which we'll get to that sometime soon. We'll be doing our episode where we'll talk about WandaVision. We'll talk about the end of Mandalorian.
We're really far behind.
We're behind. There's a bunch of new stuff. Indiana Jones is a video game now, so that's exciting. The world is a different place because of that announcement. So
that might be the single thing that I'm the most excited for.
Yeah, next to God of War.
Even transcending TV and movies.
Wow.
That video game is probably the thing I'm most excited for in terms of fiction that's coming out down the pike, and it's not going to be out for a while. So.
No. In fact, they were and we don't have to go on a tangent, but they were saying that the director of one of the head directors of games for Bethesda said that he won't let this game get in the way of his work on Elder Scrolls 6 and the new space RPG that they're working on. So it's like this game, the Indiana Jones game, maybe 2025. Sorry to bump.
I'll be 30.
Yeah, same. But yeah, so thank you guys for listening.
I'm just so hungry for some new Indiana Jones content. I mean,
I'm hungry for content in general, man.
13 years since Crystal Skull, which...
No shit. Has it been 13 years?
Mm-hmm. Half of that movie is good, And it's just like, before that, Crystal Skull had been 30 years since like the last Indiana Jones movie, or like 20 or something. So,
well, maybe
talk about a character that, and Cal and I have talked about this. We should do an indie pod a separate time because
we're wasting
Wonder Woman time. But that should be a character that's an anthology, like James Bond and Batman.
I could see that. Nathan Drake basically filled those shoes in the 2010s.
I know, and that should tell you how starved we are for that kind of content.
Yeah. Well, once again, thank you all for listening. Please go to radiovania.com or Radiovania on all the social medias to check out all of our shit. We got a lot of shit. We got reviews. You can catch up on all the DCEU stuff. You can watch all the shows. You can watch all of our funny videos that we do. The Few of Us Part 2, Drunk Man Recreates the Dark Knight, all the classics. You got to watch them. You got to be a part of it. Send your questions, comments, and thoughts on if you have any, if you want to wax poetic about the entire DCEU catalog at this point, maybe send us a poem to radiovaniashow@gmail.com. Maybe send us
I was going to say it'd be cool if we could get people to email questions for like a DCEU mailbag.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah.
What would the segment be called? Like Lex's mailbag, Lex's bag, Lex's sack,
cherry flavored Jolly Rancher bag.
the Jolly Rancher bag.
Yeah.
All right. Are you ready? I'm ready. We got to get this over with.
I'm trying to deal with this sun glare, but I don't think it's gonna.
It just makes you look like Jesus. Makes you look like you're about to you're about to come save the DCEU.
Yeah. Let me see if I try one more.
Yeah, no, take your time.
Made it worse.
Now, I'm going to talk for a little bit so you can fiddle with that if you want.
No, I'm just with it. The sun's not going to go away.
Nope, it's there. It's a force of nature. It's not going anywhere. It's like, it's like Jared Leto's Joker being damaged. You can't take that away from him. Wonder Woman 1984, released on December 25th, 2020, clocking in at a very girthy 2 hours and 31 minutes. Directed by Patty Jenkins. Patty Jenkins, most people will know her from directing Wonder Woman, the original Wonder Woman that came out in 2017. She was also the director of Monster, the Charlize Theron, Christina Ricci film, the one that I believe won an Oscar, if I'm not mistaken. It won some sort of Academy Award. I know that. She directed episodes of Arrested Development, The Killing, and she has already been announced to be directing the upcoming Star Wars Rogue Squadron, the first theatrically released Star Wars movie since Rise of Skywalker. And she is also announced to be directing, not writing, but directing Wonder Woman 3, which we don't know when that's going to happen.
We'll talk more about that.
Yes, we
will. I have some ideas.
Yeah, we will. So the film has had 7 release dates, John. 7. The first being December 20th, 2019. It was then moved up to November 8th, 2019 in order to avoid competing against Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. Once it was announced that the 25th James Bond film was to leave its originally scheduled November 1st spot, Warner Brothers moved the film's release up another week in order to take an extra week advantage. The 4th release date was when it was pushed back by 7 months to June 5th, 2020, as Warner Brothers realized the success of the first film's June 2nd release date. The fifth change was on March 24th, 2020, when it was moved to August 14th, 2020, due to concerns about the COVID-19 pandemic. It was then again moved to October 2nd in June, when Warner Brothers shifted its entire schedule of upcoming films. Then in September 2020, it was pushed once more to December 25th and released on streaming at the same time it was released in theaters.
Nice job. It's been a journey.
With a budget of $200 million.
Even?
So far. Yeah, so that's so far announced. And obviously, and this will be a big topic that we can talk about before we talk about the actual movie, because I do think that we should touch on, we want to carbon date ourselves a little bit with, the release of this movie. I want to talk about your experience with the release.
It's definitely going to be a piece of history going forward. I hate it.
So obviously the general rule of math is if you want to figure out a movie's budget, you take its production budget and multiply that by 2 to account for marketing. I also think that this is a special case where you may even that might even be more than 2 times its production budget to account for delays and extra work and extra marketing over a longer period of time.
Plus a COVID reshoot here or
exactly.
there. Yeah.
So take that number roughly. So just the basic, double that, $400 million, maybe more than $400 million. That's pretty pricey. Domestic box office so far, $35 million, 800,000. International box office so far, $105 million, bringing the worldwide box office so far to $141 million. Variety recently reported that the movie, in its theatrical run, may make 90% less than the original Wonder Woman. And in an article from MediaPlayNews.com, they reported that more U.S. households streamed Disney's Soul than Warner Brothers' Wonder Woman over Christmas weekend. The jazz music themed title was streamed by 2.4 million Disney Plus households in the U.S. 200,000 more than Wonder Woman 84 was streamed on HBO Max. And obviously, this is taken from specific data from the UK, so not U.S. numbers too. But just a sample size to give it kind of like an interesting little, something that maybe like we could, extrapolate what the US numbers might kind of look like. So
Yeah.
My first question to you, John, before we talk about the movie itself and talk about like its release is, I mean, it feels like we've been talking about Wonder Woman 1984 for years at this point, like 4 years. And it kind of feels crazy that it's like, it's here actually. And then it's like a pop culture thing now.
Yeah. I was trying to get myself in the headspace of like, how long ago was it announced? And when we first got like the images of everyone with like the multicolored backdrops and stuff like that. And the first image of her in the golden armor and
yeah,
like even just thinking about the ads that have been on the back of like DC Comics, like 1984 has been, it's actually kind of funny to have collected DC Comics over the last 2 years because it has all of those release dates on the back. Every time they would set a new date, they would advertise it again in print on these magazines. And it's just like, it's funny that I can like flip the covers around and actually just like save the advertisements for posters. And we got our first like full-fledged trailer this summer at Fandom. But when was the teaser with it's just a trash can? Was that over a year ago at this point?
It was definitely it was definitely in 2019. I'll tell you that, but I don't remember exactly when.
So it's been a while. Been a while.
So, my basic question is like kind of, I don't know. It's complicated. It's like, what was your experience of watching it on HBO Max? Like, the movie quality aside, like nothing about the actual film. Like, how did you feel about watching? Because this is the first real big budget superhero, not just superhero, but big budget action movie. This should have been the movie. This should have been the summer movie. You go to the movies, you see this movie on the big screen. It's Wonder Woman. It's an iconic superhero. You got packed out theater crowds. It's like, this is like a Marvel caliber sort of tentpole. I mean, the first Wonder Woman made like $1 billion. So
it's a huge blockbuster.
Yeah, it's a blockbuster. So what was how did you feel watching the first blockbuster completely on video on demand with HBO Max?
So I watched it here with Izzy, my girlfriend, and her roommates Frida and Allison. And I feel like that was a pretty good viewing experience for a home experience to have more than 2 people, because it does at least make more of like a quasi movie theater experience because people react to things differently. So some people laugh at things that others don't. And
sure,
one of the things that I like about movies is sometimes if you see it with the right crowd, you tend to like your first impression a lot more. And then when you see it with a totally different crowd, it's just a completely different vibe, So like just thinking back to the different times that I saw The Last Jedi, like different crowds make that movie very different for a viewing experience.
For sure.
Or even the first Wonder Woman, I saw that probably too many times than necessary in the theaters. But, some things land every time and other things were different. So I obviously am glad I got to see it and didn't have to go to a theater. So big plus there. Really enjoyed being able to pause it and like get a second burrito and, grab a beer and go get a blanket or something.
Yeah.
So that was really cool, but it did make me really sad because I haven't seen a movie in the theater since The Rise of Skywalker. So it's officially been over a year.
It's crazy.
And it's just sad because that's one of my favorite things to do is go to the movie theater.
Same.
That's kind of where our friendship flourished. So it seems like, but it also seems like since it's been so long that it's like crazy for me to be like, go to a movie theater. What? No. Like it's almost like a lost art at this point.
Yeah.
I do think I would have really had a good time with this in the theaters, but part of me honestly thinks that it's as long as it is because they were releasing it to home. I bet you a theatrical cut would be 20 minutes shorter.
That's an interesting take. I actually haven't thought about that. I bet you
once they found out they were going to HBO Max, Patty Jenkins is like, I'm not editing it at all.
That's actually a really
Jeff
interesting.
Johns was like, you're not cutting out my nuclear war stuff.
I can see that being part of and here's the other thing before I give my Tenet example here, which I think I might have talked about on the last episode, but I don't remember. But like they're going to release this in theater. this movie will be re-released in theater. All the big ones will. Dune will, Mortal Kombat will, Uncharted will. All the movies that are coming in 2021, they're going to be re-released in the theater, and they're going to make special events out of them. And I would actually wager that the theatrical cut for when they do re-release it might be even longer.
Really?
Because it's like, come see 10 minutes of never before seen footage. I bet all these movies are going to do something like that, where it's like the extended edition. They're going to try and make like a Peter Jackson thing out of it. At least that's where I think is like added value, because it's like, we've already had a year to watch these movies at home for, the cost of a subscription. Why not motivate people to go to the theater?
If you would have done that, then I think you should have started out by making it shorter, because this movie's too bloated. So
it is long.
If you release it in the theaters and it's longer, you're going to have an Aquaman situation.
Well, we'll see. I mean, that was my thoughts.
Would you watch a 3-hour version of this movie? Yes or no?
Out of morbid curiosity, yeah, I would. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Here, we'll get into it. We're almost there. But what I wanted to say, from my experience, I'm excited about today. I'm excited about this podcast because, like I said at the very beginning, I wanted to kind of make it like coming out of the theater, because we get to talk about it for the first time. This is the first time I've had to talk with like really anybody about it, because I watched it. I came home from, this will factor into my review, I think, but I came home back to my apartment from Christmas with like family, and it was a socially distant Christmas. And so it was like a little bit of extra stress time figuring all the stuff out with like how to do a gift exchange and being like extra careful around the house, not being as like relaxed as you can be on a regular Christmas. And so I come home, my girlfriend stays with her family, and I get home and I kick off my shoes and I put on sweatpants and I'm like, Wonder Woman time. I'm so excited to watch this movie. And I had a great experience with it, like on HBO Max. Like I was like, it just so happened that my girlfriend's Christmas gift to me was a new sound bar for our television. And
nice.
Yeah, I already have. I invested in a big TV like 3 years ago. It's a 65-inch 4K television, a TCL. It's a very basic model. It's not like QLED or OLED or whatever. It's very basic 4K. But now it has a sound bar, so it's like really great picture quality, really great sound quality. Got my comfy couch, my sweatpants, my blanket, and all the alcohol that I could dream about, and popcorn. And so I was like, this is so nice. Like I'm settling in. I'm like, this is good. I'm enjoying watching a new movie in a very comforting experience. And I think that
watching something new. Yeah, it was great.
And I think that affected my judgment of the movie, but we'll get to that here in a sec. So, I think without further ado,
we should just lead off with the fact that we're both huge saps. So that'll.
Sure.
It's been a long time coming to watch a movie at home. I feel like that was just like that aspect probably, weighs into how we feel about the experience.
Yeah. And I've said for a long time, if you've listened to Radiovania for the 4 or 5 years that we've been going now, it's like I've bitched and moaned about the theater experience.
There's like a rant every episode.
Yeah. I hate so much about the movie theaters, but I love so much of it at the same time. It's a very delicate balance. It's like, I love the discussion. I love the atmosphere.
Powerful light, powerful dark.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It is very much like always riding that line. Either I'm going to go to Endgame, Avengers Endgame, and have the best theater experience of my life, where everybody is respectful when they need to be and cheering when they need to be. And like, you can feel the emotion in the room. No one's fucking around. Or I could go to see Shazam, and I've got kids like doing the floss on the theater screen floor or whatever, like up at the front of the thing. And I'm just like, I want to shoot myself in the head. So it's like, it's that powerful light, powerful dark. Exactly. And so I'm excited that I don't want to see theaters. I don't want to get political about it either too, but like, I think it came out a week ago that there's going to be, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think it's like close to $1 billion in theater relief as part of like the not stimulus, but a part of the COVID-19 relief plan for 2021. And it's like, I don't want to see theaters go completely under. Like the big chains just need to adapt. And I want to see the smaller theater chains like Alamo Drafthouse. And
so I have a way to save movie theaters. Okay.
I think you've told me this before. Is it you want them to show old movies and like make events out of them?
No. This is something completely different. Every movie theater, with the exception of these art house cinemas, which should be able to be fine because they can, adapt the way they need to because they're so small budget. less overhead. But all these big AMCs and Regals and stuff, why have they not taken their big ass parking lot and set them up into ways to make it a drive-in and get a big screen outside? Sure. The easy way to start making the revenue. You can pay for employees to do a snack cart that delivers to people's cars in a socially distant way. I'm glad they're giving relief, because I do want movie theaters to survive as well too, but I feel like they haven't tried as hard as they need to.
Well, it's like
people that don't want to go into the movie theater.
Yeah. I mean, it's
probably a majority of people.
It's a conglomeration too. Like, you also have to factor in the fact that, like, there's a small independent theater chain in Cincinnati. I haven't personally gone because I'm a bit of a hypochondriac when it comes to this stuff, and I don't really want to put myself out in spaces with COVID if I don't need to be. But there's a small independent theater chain in Cincinnati that apparently is doing really, really great with separation and distancing and temperature checks and all this stuff. And even my elderly neighbor, who I talk to every now and then when I pass her on the street, she was saying that she really wanted to go see that political documentary, The Way I See It. And she was like, I was so motivated. She was like, I'm going to give it a chance. She was like, and I felt, pretty decent about it. So it's like, there are those theater chains that are taking real extra precautions, but then it's like, yeah, I just don't think AMC or Regal can mobilize their workers to do a project that big. Maybe select theaters could definitely do it, but yeah, it is shocking to me why almost none of them have taken. You don't see that headline that. I agree, that's an easy fix.
Just saying. I mean, You could have been showing Wonder Woman for the entire Christmas run outside at a drive-in, because we've seen how big those parking lots are. You can easily divide them up so that the cars are facing towards the building, instead of side to side.
Yeah.
And you should be able to at least fit 50 cars in some of those parking lots,
And knowing AMC and Regal and shit.
Yeah.
You could charge $25-$30 a car.
For sure.
Easily.
There's a drive-in here in Santa Cruz at the Boardwalk. It's $35 a car.
Whew.
Split that with 5 people in the car.
Yeah, that's for sure.
That's super cheap, Yeah. You could do family discounts on Sunday mornings. There's tons of things that could be done, but people just aren't, because for some reason these theater chains are like, no, you have to come inside and you have to get your popcorn and sit down and eat in the theater.
It's frustrating.
We're going to pretend like this isn't happening.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And that's a whole nother topic, but we should probably start getting into the movie.
I would love to.
But before we do that, John, I'm going to need you to vamp for literally 15 seconds while I take my hoodie off because I'm burning up. So vamp.
Okay. Yeah. So just kind of before we dive into the plot of this movie, I'm sure we'll talk about our overall just impressions and stuff, but I'm excited to talk to you about the background of some of these characters, which I'm sure are kind of new to Zach and maybe to some of the listeners here too. But I'm going to do my best with some of the fact checks. So.
That's a great point, John. We should probably start the episode off by saying that we decided to do this because DC, we like comic book movies. That's an overlap in our friendship. We like action movies. We also like comics in general, and John is the DC comics expert, and I'm not really a comics expert, but I really do like the movies. And so John knows way more about all the shit, and I'm going to have so many questions for this episode. So,
yeah, I'm sure.
I've got oodles. So, okay. Are you ready, my friend, my caped crusader?
Nothing good ever comes from lies. Let's do it.
Yeah, shit. I was going to start the episode off, and I was going to go, Radiovania is good, but it can be better. John Parker, what did you think of Wonder Woman 1984?
It has some major flaws. It is very long. There are some questions that I have about it, but I thought it was a fun popcorn munching dive back into a nice pair of shoes that you've worn a couple of times to see some characters that you really love. The dynamic between Steve and Diana, as always, is electric. It's actually funny to hear that Gal Gadot's husband can't watch these movies because of how the chemistry between her and Chris Pine is so magnificent. I like parts of the new character villains, specifically Max Lord and Barbara. But there are also some issues that I have with that as well. I think it's weird that the movie focuses more on mechs than it seems Wonder Woman at times, which is kind of a complaint I have, but also I love me some Pedro Pascal. But overall, I enjoyed the movie while knowing that it has some of the flaws. I had fun. I also had a lot of questions. I also had some, there's one big problem that I have with it that I'm sure we'll talk about.
I hope I know what it is. I think I know what it is because it seems to be the problem that a lot of people have with the movie.
Yeah, I'm still excited for a third installment. I think when it's all said and done, that Patty Jenkins and Gal being partnered through all three of them is a good thing.
Sure.
And I think a lot of the hate that people have for this story, I'm just going to go ahead and preface this now, I think is Jeff Johns' fault, not Patty Jenkins' fault, because they're co-writers, right? So I'm pretty sure that's
Jeff Johns is listed with a story credit, but Patty Jenkins is the writer, is listed as written and directed by Patty Jenkins. So she wrote the script. There's some things in
this though. Yeah, but there's some things in this for plot that are just like, they just scream Jeff Johns. And we'll talk more about it when we get there. But
sure.
I think that there was definitely some top-notch studio involvement here with the plot of this movie.
Wouldn't be a DC movie overall, without some good old-fashioned studio involvement, baby.
Yeah, so overall, like, thumb up. I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it. What about you?
This movie's a hot mess, baby. This movie is goofy where it shouldn't be and really serious in moments. And it's like an EKG. It's like up and down, up and down, up and down.
It doesn't know whether to be a Snyder movie or a Wonder Woman movie.
Yes. And the perfect encapsulation of that is the opening where you have this 15-minute long action set piece that's color grained to look like it's like kind of gritty looking. It's darker. It's saturated, like unsaturated. And it's this giant epic thing with all this CG happening. And then boom, you cut to 1984 and it's this goofy ass mall robbery that I loved. I loved the mall robbery. And so here's the thing. This movie is so weird for me, man. I really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. But I was like having kind of a fun time, like laughing at it, if that makes sense.
I think it will be remembered as kind of campy in the way that Spider-Man trilogy is.
Yes, very Sam Raimi. There's a lot of Raimi in this movie, and I kind of dug it. I mean, like I felt like, again, like what's a good example? Like this isn't going to work one for one, but Suicide Squad, David Ayer clearly wanted you to feel like along the ride with these characters, and he wanted you to feel like depressed and that there was no hope and that it was like this scary mission with these terrible bad guys and like a horrible plot, and that you wanted to be invested in this end of the world thing that was happening. But it's like the whole time you're just laughing at it because it's so awful and there's no heart. Yeah. But I feel like Wonder Woman 1984 has heart, and it has like some great things to say, and it does it in very sincere ways. But one has to wonder if they intentionally wanted to make this movie goofy, because that's what it like. I can't think of any other descriptor for this movie other than goofy. It's like, it's goofy.
They picked two. I mean, Wonder Woman villains in comic books are like super cheesy, man. Like they're really cheesy. Even Ares is really cheesy in the comics, and like this felt like a modern take on the Superman movie and Superman 2, the Dick Donner movies.
Totally.
Like that same kind of camp. Cheesy. Yeah, they know it's campy and cheesy, but it's also fun, and it is serious at times, but it kind of is like, I feel like it is intentional, but sometimes it, like you said, it kind of ebbs and flows on like when it decides to be that. So
yeah, there's a scene. There's a back-to-back scenes where there's a CGI cheetah fight in a moonlit bay right next to Pedro Pascal pouring his heart out over his estranged son, and it's like, what the fuck is happening in this movie? It's so bonkers, and I really enjoyed it.
One of the things, yeah.
Well, I was gonna say that, like, I was like, when the movie finished, Granted, and again, like I said earlier, my viewing experience might factor into the movie's quality for me, and I think that this is one of those things where it's like I've disliked movies because of the theater experience that I've had, or I've loved movies even more than I probably should have because I had a great experience in the theater. But like I came home from a very tiring and like long day, a Christmas day. It's like, gift exchanges and, COVID and all this stuff. And I came home and I relaxed and I watched this movie. And I think that factored into, because I think that I was in like a tranquil state. Like I think I was in like a state of
you're very docile.
Yes, I was like pet the dog, give me a gin and tonic, give me a popcorn. Like I was feeling very relaxed. And I think that because at the very end of the movie, I was like, man, that was really, really great. I really had a good time. I was like, I wonder what critics are thinking about this movie. And then I opened Twitter and I was like, oh my God. And I was like, and it wasn't until the next day and the day after that. And then when I started rewatching it and taking notes and stuff like that, that I realized I was like, yeah, this movie's kind of fucked up. It's like an editing nightmare and it's too long. Like we've said that before. This movie's way too long. Like I think you could have cut out the entire opening and I think it would have been perfectly fine. Like,
yeah, I like the opening though.
I liked it too. Wait, which opening? The triathlon? You like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
I love Themyscira, and I think that was a really great part, and I think that was a good way to start it. I hope all three of them start on Themyscira in some way. I also really like, and we don't get enough of her ever, but I really like Jenny as Antiope. I think she's great. Jenny, that's not Robin Wright. Sorry,
Robin Wright. Well, again, like another thing I really enjoy, and we'll get into the plot and talk about these things piece by piece. But like, I think all of the actors do a really great job. Like, I think Pedro Pascal is obviously the highlight for me. I think
they got a great cast. For sure.
Pedro Pascal is great in basically anything that he's in. And I think Max Lord is a fun villain. And like, I was enjoying like his ride and his like, the way that he plays that character is so goofy and funny. And
he is way better than Ares. Like it's not.
Oh, that's not even a question. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
the villains in this movie, both of them are better than the two in the last, but like
for sure. For sure. I mean, they actually have stuff to do. Like, Ares is an old man that suddenly becomes a god. And it's like in this, you kind of have he has payoff. Like both of them do really. I mean, like Cheetah's payoff isn't great, but like at least Maxwell Lord has like, a setup and a rise and then a climax
and then
a conclusion
for sure. So,
but yeah, even Kristen Wiig, I really enjoyed Kristen Wiig in the beginning playing a female James Franco from Spider-Man 3. I really enjoyed that performance. I thought that was great.
Yeah. They definitely they were intentionally like, we need you to play Michelle Pfeiffer in Batman Returns, pretty much.
Sure.
So
yeah.
And it worked. I thought she was great too. I think she's kind of an overlooked actress, but I think this is like right in her wheelhouse for like, it's kind of a goofy movie, so she can still be weird. While also borderline, like show us some of your dramatic chops,
Sure.
So,
yeah. I mean, anything else surface level that you wanted to say? I mean, I think the movie is, again, like to talk about length, like there's just a lot of.
Did you like Chris Pine coming back, or did you? Would you have preferred that they left him dead?
I think I would have just preferred that they left him dead, honestly. Yeah. Like, I mean, I think Chris Pine's a great actor. You put him in anything and he's just going to be charismatic as hell. But what was the one you were saying that you've got one big major problem? Do you want to talk about that now? Because I feel like...
Yeah, she rapes the guy that he's
she does.
That's bad. That's really bad.
Again, like, I don't want to make Radiovania 100% wholly... I don't want it to be like people to think that we're unoriginal content, but like most of the internet has this same problem, and like this is everywhere. And I wanted to say, because like again, it goes back.
I just don't know how that was what was decided on.
Exactly, and that's the point. Is that like I finished the movie and I was like, man, I really enjoyed that. That was a really fun comic book movie. And then I was like, I wonder what critics are saying. I opened up Twitter and people are ripping it to shreds. It's the worst thing ever. This is the worst thing. It's offensive. It's blah, 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 blah. This is terrible. How could they have done this to such a great character? And then the highest rated thread on the DC subreddit is this thing that's like, how did no one question this decision as being like morally ambiguous? Because it is, to say that, like, I don't know. It's baffling to me. It's baffling.
It's a big problem. Yeah, it's a really big problem. And I wouldn't be mad if they edited it out of the movie.
Well, you could
There's
easily...
a way to do this. You ready? Okay. You go into the editing room, cut out the scene of him at the end at the Christmas thing, the guy that he inhabits. And you cut out the scene of like the spin around in the mirrors, you know, where it's like you can see the other guy, and you just have her like wake up and he's in bed with her. And
yeah, I mean, the easy solution would have just been, again, like someone on Twitter brought it up. They were like, this is a movie where there are wishing stones and cheetah women, but for some reason the believability of just having Chris Pine show up is too much for this movie. Is really, really fucking weird.
There's a scene where the Dreamstone animates a wall around Cairo, and you're telling me that we can't just like make a man appear that only she can see or something?
Yeah.
Because the other problem is she's like going around the world with the dude, and like everyone else sees him as him, and she sees him as Chris Pine. And it's just like, why is Johnny hanging out with Wonder Woman in Cairo, like flipping over cars and stuff like that? Like, what if his family saw him on the news? Like,
yeah, it's really weird.
What if Wonder Woman 3 is directed by Zack Snyder and it's just a courtroom special about her raping this dude?
So like and I'm giving this movie a lot of rope here, but like the only thing that I can think of to wrap my brain around this in their heads is that at the very end, when she denounces her wish, it basically denounces anything that happened prior. So like basically this guy just became like the shell of a body, and then he wakes up and his body is exactly what it was and where it was before her wish took place in the beginning, which is a leap, I know, but at least I can see someone in the boardroom or the director room being like, well, so this guy would have just been like a vessel. Like he just didn't exist anymore. Like basically Wonder Woman's wish killed this guy, because the whole thing with the follow me. The whole thing is like,
penis was the one that was used.
I know, but follow me again. Like I'm saying, it's the monkey paw. That's what they talk about, is that the wishing stone does something. And what they make it out to be, and this is what also makes it frustrating, is because they think part of the wishing paw thing is that her powers are going away. But you could also take that to be that that's what Cheetah's negative wish was that her negative wish was taking Diana's powers away. But I think that Diana's negative part of her wish is that she killed a guy. Like I think that the guy that Chris Pine took over his body is just dead. Like his brain is dead. His cognitive forces are dead. That guy is dead. He doesn't exist. And her recanting her wish at the end is that guy coming back to life. So basically Chris Pine was just inhabiting like a corpse, like a vessel. That's the only way I can think that they would have justified it in the boardroom.
That is so complicated, though.
I know.
You know, like that's like, if you're gonna do that, please explain it, because otherwise it just comes across as rapey.
And I mean, maybe this goes to show like, with my tranquil state again, and watching this movie in the evening, but I didn't think about it at all until the movie was over. Like I didn't think about it at all. I was just like, I just kind of took it for what it is. But I'm also one of those guys that's like kind of like, I don't question shit in like a Nolan movie. Like I see a Nolan movie and I'm just like, okay, I'll take this or whatever. I'll think about this later. Like something I don't understand, I'm always like, I'll think about that later. And I didn't think about this being like a totally inappropriate thing until after the movie was over.
And like the thing is too, is like this movie is like a cheesy 80s action movie, like something that Arnold Schwarzenegger would be in.
Sure.
But like, I can't think of anything that is this unintentionally problematic. Like it's like they fell asleep at the wheel and they were just like, yeah, people will be fine with that. Sure. It's like, no, you're living in the Me Too era and you have a female-led superhero franchise and you don't think more about that. That just something happened. Something's going. on.
And
Maybe this is why Ray Fisher wants them to investigate Warner Brothers.
Well, Ray Fisher is now officially out of this universe. That's a news story that we'll bring up on the episode. But they're writing his character out of the Flash movie.
Oh no, we're gonna have to get a new Cyborg,
or just no Cyborg.
No, I like Cyborg.
I like Cyborg
Justice for Vic Stone. Yeah,
sure. But yeah, I don't know. Like, and you bring up like the Me Too stuff. It's like, yeah, totally. Like, it's like, how did they not really think about that stuff? Because like the DC movies, here's one thing that they aren't, is that they aren't like insensitive. Like they're dumb comic book movies, but they're usually pretty fucking safe. Like around but this is like such a glaring omission that it's almost concerning. And that's one of the things that I want to talk to you about. Is the last thing before we get into like the plot is Gal Gadot. I mean, talk about what you want with Jeff Johns, but like she's listed as the writer director on the project, and it's like
Patty Jenkins.
Yeah, Patty Jenkins wrote. Yeah. She was the writer and director for Wonder Woman 1984. She directed Wonder Woman, and someone else wrote that script. And now for Wonder Woman 3, she's credited. They announced that she's coming back to direct, but they haven't announced her to come back to write. And I think that personally, like Patty Jenkins is a very talented director, but like the script in this movie is just bonko. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like
again, she's heavily influenced by those Dick Donner movies.
I mean, she put a reference to Superman, the original Superman movie, in the Wonder Woman movie. Yeah. Like that scene is the same scene.
I think she's like, let me make my Superman 2. And if you watch Superman 2, there's some there's some interesting things in Superman 2 as well. If I'm trying to rack my brain about it with Lois and Clark. Nothing rapey though, but yeah. So I don't know.
So I don't know. How do you feel about that? Like, do you feel like if they announced that Patty Jenkins is once again the writer director, like that do you feel confident in that? Because I personally,
as long as they don't attach Chris Terrio to it. Oh shit! Drive by on Chris Terrio, bitch. Get him. Don't let him anywhere near these DC movies again. He had his chance with BVS and he totally shot it in the face with Palpatine.
Somehow,
no, I don't. I would be a little concerned if she was the writer. In all honesty, though, I am glad she's directing it, but at least let her have a co-writing partner.
She's a great director. Like the action set pieces in this are excellent. The framing of everything is great. The movie looks really good. I think. I think they don't do much like X-Men Apocalypse. They didn't use the 80s aesthetic very well. Like I think that they only really used it in the mall fight at the beginning.
Yeah.
But like the rest of the movie is just kind of like generic. Like this movie could take place in any decade and you wouldn't really even know. I mean, they play up a lot of the Cold War stuff. I don't know. Interesting movie. it's such an interesting. This is like an onion. It's like an onion wrapped inside of like a casserole.
I would be really excited if they got Greta Gerwig to co-write it with her. I think she would be awesome.
I'm blanking on
that way. You can keep it in the female wheelhouse. She's the writer and director of Lady Bird. She just directed the Little Women adaptation.
Oh, okay.
What else did she do? She does all the stuff with Saoirse Ronan, pretty much. But yeah, I don't know. Just think before you put it out there next time. Just a couple of things. So.
And again, like, yeah, this is another case of like, what does DC want to be? Like, do they want to be campier and goofier, or do they want to be Aquaman? Fucking Joker? Like,
you got to pick.
You got to pick something. If you're going to make a universe, you have to make it cohesive. Like, I don't care. I don't care that people say that all the Marvel movies feel like similar. It's like, yeah, they feel similar because they're connected and it feels cohesive. It's like, I don't care if the movies feel similar as long as they're good movies. Like, I don't know.
Well, and they're all different tones too, but they don't feel so vastly different. Like Suicide Squad, I'm going to pick something else because that's just a bad movie. Batman v Superman and Aquaman could not be like, they couldn't be any different. You know, they're so different in terms of like.
I think the best comparison is Shazam.
Sure.
Shazam and
they make
Blank.
more things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that this movie was trying to be like Shazam. Like, it's kind of got that like heartful moments. It's got it's like very whimsical at times, but then it's also like you add this stuff with like the government, and there's like people dying and getting bodies swapped, and there's
too much Reaganomics movie, man.
It's bizarre. It's really, really, really bizarre. And yeah, I would have loved to have seen a more like, it's another thing that we're glossing over is that this movie's another like end of the world thing. It's like the very end of the movie is the villain like broadcasting to everybody on the planet. And it's like, can't we just have a small story?
This movie steals pretty heavily from Days of Future Past.
Yeah, it does.
Pretty heavily. Or First Class. Both of those X-Men period piece movies, which are phenomenal. But I was watching that end and I was like, oh, now she's talking to everybody like Mystique being on TV. Interesting. Okay. No one's original anymore.
Yeah. All right.
All roads lead back to Hugh Jackman, baby. Snicked.
Oh, Hugh.
Let's do this plot because this is a beefy movie and we're going to be here all day. So, all right. So this movie opens up with another voiceover by Diana where she's talking about another part of her history. So I do like this kind of thing where it's like she's narrating parts of her past, almost like the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. And one of the opening lines here that I think is really important that should be one of the, themes of the movie after rewatching that I really picked up on is she says, sometimes you can't see what you're learning until you come out the other side. So again, just like a typical big thing. And they talk about nothing good ever comes from lies. Heroes are not born from lies. So they're laying it on thick, like a nice chocolate cake icing on top before this movie even really gets going. But it opens on Themyscira. We have the same actress who plays young Diana from the first movie when she was a kid. But they're competing in this big trials thing. And they got this huge gladiator arena, which I don't know what you thought, but I thought the fact that they put this really cool like Olympic stadium on a cliffside was like pretty sweet. Like I would love to see like some
this all looks
more things
great.
Like that. It was cool. Yeah.
Like it all visually is very, very appealing. Like it all is shot incredibly well. The jungle. This is the best Themyscira has looked. Like it looks It looks less CGI and more like natural nature.
God, the Justice League Themyscira, where it's like just a field.
Oh, it looks like terrible. It looks like ass. It's terrible. It's the worst, laziest. Yeah, terrible.
They like filmed it in Zack Snyder's backyard. But yeah, so there's this big triathlon and Diana, because of nepotism, is able to compete against these adult warriors. And it involves, like an obstacle course, and then they got to swim through the ocean and get on horseback and then shoot off of horseback with arrows. It's very elaborate, cool. I love sports, so I was like, I'm full in on this. I thought that was really fun. But
John's watching from the Themyscira bleachers with like a beer and the nachos.
Fuck yeah, dude. Man, I'm already there.
Only here for the. By the way, I got to check the Browns game. Go,
keep me up.
Go Chiefs, baby.
Nah, dude, Baker Mayfield all day.
He got arrested for DUI and punched a cop in college.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I hated him in college, so love him now.
16-3, bottom of the second.
Bottom of the second. All right, baseball. But anyway, so Diana's leading this challenge, and she's back to kind of see where her lead is at, and she gets knocked off by a branch, which I don't know why she's not fast enough to chase her horse down, but fine. And there's off to the side, there's a little slide that you can take. She's going to use it to catch up to her horse. Turns out, take the slide, you miss one of the little pegs because they have to like shoot arrows at these little vials that shoot up colored spews of smoke in the sky, and it lets people know the standings of the race.
Little Goblet of Fire inspiration here.
Yeah, very Goblet of Fiery. Very good. That's a very good comparison, Zachary. Nice job. Kind of like the trial in the lake. You got to come back with your own. Anyway, she cheats, Harry Potter, essentially. Yeah, she's able to get back, and the last little minute to cross the finish line is you got to throw a spear through a hoop, and she's about to chuck it, and she would essentially win, although we all know that her banner didn't move down as much. So, and then tie a piece at the last second for a little mentorship chat about how she cheated, and you're not ready to be a hero because no good hero is born from lies. And comes over, and they have this moment where they're just kind of reassuring her that like there will be your time eventually, but you still got a lot to learn.
Sure.
because taking shortcuts should not be the way. The world needs truth. And I like this part too, because I think that actress who plays young Diana with that huge pout on her face is just such a funny image, where she's just like, it's not fair.
And it's like this close up that just like lingers on her forever. And I don't think that young actress is like a bad actress, but like that's bad. I was like, oh, we didn't have a better take for this.
Kind of funny. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but it's funny. Like, I don't think I was
tantrums.
I don't think you were supposed to think that that's funny. Like, I think that they were like, we want you to feel.
I thought the room read it as funny. Like, we were all chuckling. Like, we were like, oh, poor kid. It's like, you can't cheat. We were like scolding her. So anyway, then it cuts to the title card, which I wanted to see what you thought. Cause it's like, they're trying to infuse. It's very lame. They're trying to, it's like the Solo title card. Like, it just like fizzles out of nowhere above like a landscape shot. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really, it's bizarre. Like, they learned a ton of the wrong. I'm going to compare this movie a lot to Thor Ragnarok. I think this movie really wants to be Thor Ragnarok. I mean, even from the poster design, like the use of 80s music, the use of color and saturation.
Ragnarok. Yeah, it wants to be Ragnarok or Days of Future Past on different scenes. So.
Yeah, but it's like they took all the wrong lessons from Ragnarok. Like, Ragnarok is funny because it's like these characters that are kind of like a little goofy and self-aware, but it's not like corny. It's like this. You have to ride that line.
You make me want to watch that movie.
Hell yeah, dude! Ragnarok's the best.
Don't worry about my rocky appearance. Nothing to be afraid of unless you're a pair of scissors. Haha, just a little rock, paper, scissors joke for you. No need to be worried.
We tried to start a revolution, but we didn't print enough pamphlets.
Piss off, ghost.
See, it's like shit like that. It's like, I can see this movie being and it's frustrating. This is frustrating because obviously I want diversity in films and diversity in people creating films too. But it's like, I really would have loved to have seen this movie given a second pass through by Taika. Like, a little bit more witty humor, a little bit more self-awareness. You didn't do enough with the source material, or not source material, but you didn't do enough with like the decade. The movie's called Wonder Woman 1984, and like like the title cards are just like these kind of shitty TV graphics, and there's no like music playing. It's like just the score. It started off with like a fucking flock of seagulls. Duran Duran, give me some Take on Me. Give me something. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was a very boring and bland opening, this thing here. But then the mall scene, which we'll talk about. Oh boy. John's computer blew up. There he is. I can see
weird.
him. Are you there? I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's still recording. That was weird. Sorry.
Oh, weird. DC was trying to assassinate us.
It froze and then closed the app. So sorry. Okay. You were saying you wanted this movie to be like what?
Yeah, I mean, I said it there, but like I was like, I just wanted it to be more like that. More like
just lean into the funny.
Yeah, lean into the funny. Be a little bit more self-aware. Be a little less like, I don't know, just. There's a difference. Like, Taika Waititi makes like movies that are very witty in comedy, but they're funny. But this movie is very goofy and funny, and I don't think that that's like a direct comparison. Like,
and I think that Shazam does it really well because it's funny, but their villain is still menacing. But it exists in a comedy movie. Like, Savannah's great. Mark Strong plays him really well. He doesn't play him too goofy or campy. He has some like cheesy one-liners too. They're like all great villains do, but they're like self-aware of it. So like, there's a way you could have done that with Max Lord and the Cheetah too.
Yeah. And it's all about balance too. But it's like, and the frustrating thing is that like, I really like Max Lord. Like, I think that he's awesome. I think he's really, really awesome. But yeah,
he's the loser.
He's a goofy villain in a goofy movie. And I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I really wish this movie could have been really good. Don't you wish that for me, Zach?
We'll get to all the wishing stuff. We'll get to the wishing stuff.
Yeah. So the movie title card happens, and now we're in 1984 in Washington, D.C. is where most of this movie takes place. So this is where Diana lives. So if we're tracking the timeline, she lives in D.C. and she works for the Smithsonian, and this is, close to 2 decades before she winds up working for the Louvre in Justice League. So there's like a little montage of like the 80s, like setting the vista of like people working out in their sweat attires, and Diana's also like stopping these minuscule crimes along the way, but we don't really see her full body yet. She's like catching people with the ropes and stuff like that.
Love
we
it.
get to the mall, which looks exactly like the Stranger Things mall from season 3.
Exactly. I think it's the same
maybe
mall.
It's the
I think
same
they shot at
mall.
the same mall.
Yeah. And there's, these guys that go into a jewelry store, and there's like a black market. This is just like showing the 80s capitalism of like black market hype at that time. But they know that there's a black market antiquity shop in the back, and they're going to rob it. So they go back there, and this is where we see what will eventually be introduced as the Dreamstone, just like sitting on a shelf, kind of like Raiders of the Lost Ark style, like back in all this. And as they're escaping, this homie goes full Joaquin Phoenix Joker and drops his gun on the floor where everyone can see it.
Yeah.
And people freak out. And his great plan for escape is to take a child as a hostage, which is such a bad idea. And he's like dangling her over the side. And I like the scene a lot. And I do think it's really funny when he's dangling her over the thing, and his other like robber friends are like, what are you doing? They're just like,
someone brought it up on Twitter, but they hold on one of those guys like yelling for like literally 8 seconds. He's just like,
and that's where like this is like such a 80s like camp fest cheese palooza. But yeah, so Wonder Woman comes in, and she's using I love it. She's using the tiara as a boomerang, like in the comic. She's using the lassos like Spider-Man, web slinging around and stuff like that, which she does that a lot. She upgraded the lasso hardcore in the skill tree before this movie.
She got it to 100 XP, and it got to the next level for sure. Yeah. But this
is a cool scene. I love her hanging the guy upside down by his legs, and like his quarters are falling out, and she like winks at that little girl.
Yes, that's my favorite part.
This is like what I wanted the rest of the movie to be.
Same.
Yeah, because I think this is like, they know that. Listen, Gal is a really fun actress. She's not the greatest actress, but she's really fun. A lot of people have been comparing her to Schwarzenegger, where it's like they don't make her adapt her personality at all. Like she can just be herself, and that's what I really like about her as Wonder Woman, is she embodies that character really well, but adds her own to it. And this scene was so good, and this is what I really wanted most of the rest of the movie to be, which it can be at sometimes, but
yeah, this is easily my favorite. This is my favorite scene in the whole movie, and it's odd because this is one of the scenes getting the most flack online, where it's like, what's this scene doing here? It's so goofy and campy, but it's like, that's kind of what I wanted. Like, I wanted the movie to kind of double down on that camp. Like, they have fucking Linda Carter shows up at the end of this movie. It's like, you understand that you're drawing so much inspiration from the cheesy 70s Wonder Woman. It's like, why not just double down on that? I don't know. Bizarre.
Yeah. I want this full version of this movie, because it does feel very Sam Raimi Spider-Man, where he's like throwing guys into the webs and he's smiling around, say cheese, he's taking pictures and stuff. Like, it's okay to be like that. And it seems like, I don't know if they were afraid to double down after Shazam of making another campy movie, but it could be campy in different ways. So.
Well, Shazam was critically well received, but commercially it wasn't like the biggest hit. But I don't think that made them I don't think that made them scared for it. I don't think anything about this movie came from Shazam. I think Patty Jenkins just had this idea of wanting to make a bubblegum 80s pop culture comic book movie, and it's bizarre.
Yeah. But I mean, some other little plot beats after this is the guy's like, the reporter's like a mysterious female warrior, and it's just like, so apparently people still don't know who she is, since she walked away from mankind 100 years ago. She gets back to her apartment, and this is kind of cool. We get to see photos of filling in the gaps between World War I and 1984, which is a huge chunk of time.
Trevor Ranch
she went to. There's pictures of her liberating concentration camps in World War II, which is pretty cool. I'm sure there's a bunch of other things. I've only seen it twice. I didn't pick up all the Easter eggs, but yeah, the big one is the Trevor Ranch photo and seeing his watch that he gave her in the first movie.
Yeah.
So, and then this transitions to her This is a theme that they talk about a bunch, eating by herself at a little like Washington, D.C. cafe, drinking some red wine solo. And she sees a plane fly overhead and she's like, looks at it very longingly and sad. And they really lay it on thick where he's like, waiting for anyone else? And she's like, no, I'm alone. And he's like, okay, I'm going to take all these right in front of your face.
Yeah. So. Okay. So I know we're already getting sidetracked, but like this is another one of the themes of the movie that we didn't talk about at the beginning that I think is actually really problematic. You asked me earlier where you were like, would you have rather them not brought back Steve Trevor? And I think yes, because I think this whole thing would have been alleviated. I liked where it was going at the beginning because they started talking about how it's like, I liked how she was like, she's alone. She spent a lot of time alone. She fell in love once. She was really hurt and devastated by a tragic loss. And so now she's dealing with that. How does she deal with that? You introduce this Kristen Wiig character who starts becoming friends with her. And then she finds that she has a bond with someone else that she hasn't felt in a long time. It's not necessarily sexual, but it's romantic in that way, kind of like you and me. It's like, I'm romantically because I love you, and you feel that partnership and that companionship. And I was like, I really, really like this. But then they do a good job
of setting that up, but they don't deliver on it.
No, because it goes right back to her being head over heels for him. And then the whole thing of the movie is I recant my wish, and she's sad, and she was sad about losing him again. And it's like, I think
I'm pretty sure in the comics too, she's like quasi bisexual with Barbara too. So they've definitely done that before.
I would have loved to have seen them go full hog into that too, but it's like it's really sad because Gal Gadot is a strong female presence on screen, and Wonder Woman is the female superhero. Like Captain Marvel makes $1 billion, movies, blah 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 blah. But Wonder Woman's the female superhero. She's like the most famous one, and it really frustrates me that they felt the need to bring back Steve Trevor as another romantic interest. Like, I think a much more clever way to go about this would have been like her being like, I'm strong enough on my own. Like, I don't need, like, that was a time and place in my life and maybe I don't need him. And then when Steve Trevor does appear, she's a little conflicted about that. Like, not just having her seem so desperate. And that's really shitty because like Wonder Woman's such a strong character. It's frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. I do like having him back though.
Me too. He could have come back in flashbacks. Like, he didn't need to bring his literal body back to life.
Or just like not inhabit another human.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's fine. So our next little moment here is our introduction to Barbara Minerva, played by Kristen Wiig.
Yep.
Who is at the Smithsonian, where we find out Diana works for Cultural Anthropology Department. Barbara's a gemologist, archaeologist, part-time cryptozoologist. She drops all of her stuff, and all these guys are walking by, and these shitty 80s men don't know how to treat a lady nice, so they just don't even help her. And
this
Diana
is when you start getting
though.
Flashbacks to The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which you should probably never be getting flashbacks to that movie. You should probably not be
Fox,
thinking about it.
what up? Yeah. We'll see him again very soon in Spider-Man 3.
Hell yeah.
And so Diana helps her, and it's setting up this kind of like awkward meet cute. She clearly has some social, anxieties and struggles to meet people, and she even talks about this when they go out to dinner later about how like she knows people talk behind her back and stuff. It's one of these classic tropes of setting up the person with the glasses, and when they take the glasses off and they get their makeover, they go full Toby Spider-Man and they're muscular. And are you changing? Yeah, big change. But yeah, so their boss at the Smithsonian does do you know Barbara Minerva? And she's like, I'm right here. We interviewed multiple times, but they're setting up this thing that the FBI acquired a bunch of artifacts from the mall robbery, and they're bringing them by to get dated. And Barbara kind of is able to find out that one of the things that her and Diana are looking through is a phony rock, like maybe only like $75, which she calls like citrine or something like that. And they read the Latin inscription, since Diana can speak Latin, and I don't remember the exact incantation, but it's something along the lines of like, place it on the object held and it'll grant your wish. I don't know. Do you have any comments on that specifically?
No. It's a goofy looking stone. Again, they picked the most cheesy looking, terrible. It looks like fake stone.
The Shankar stones from Temple of Doom.
Yeah,
but with like a ring around it from Lord of the Rings. So 2 in 1. And they're kind of like joking about wishes, and she's like, She's like, can you imagine? And the guy comes up and he's like, I wish I had a coffee. And then like this guy's like, hey, I got an extra coffee. And he's like, wow, I can't believe it worked. And I thought that was funny. And the tell for wishes coming true is there's this faint fart breeze that like blows through people's hair.
This is a weird choice.
Yeah. So we see Diana hold it and she kind of closes her eyes and we see her hair blow a little bit. So they don't actually ever say what her wish is because she never speaks it out loud. But
maybe that's their way of getting around the body inhabitation thing too. Is that maybe she
hope so? Because if she was like, I wish that he would inhabit this other man's body.
I wish I could have sex with another man, but pretend it's my old man.
Yeah, face fuck him.
Oof. I think that if anything, her wish would have just been, I wish I had Steve Trevor back. Right? That's what it has to be.
Yeah, I think that's what it is led to believe. Yeah, and the monkey's paw does its own way of providing his return. So that happens, and this leads to, earlier Barbara asked if she wanted to get dinner. So now we get the scene of them eating, and this is a really cool dinner spot. They're like looking at the Washington Monument and like having gal pal dinner. And I like the scene quite a bit, actually. I think it's really cool for setting up what you were mentioning earlier, which would have been cool if they leaned more into the dynamic of these two characters. But
yes.
So we find out that, Barbara's kind of quirky and falls in love very easily, and Diana's still hung up on Steve Trevor. It's pretty easy. I guess another thing that I forgot is when she makes her silent wish, it does flash over to the watch that starts ticking, which I thought was kind of a cool symbol thing.
Yeah, again, it's cool, but like this could have easily just been like the watch had a piece of his DNA on it or whatever. You can imagine that the watch maybe carried his essence or something. So
his spirit, maybe.
Yeah.
Greek mythology's wild. Who knows?
It's all wild.
But after dinner, Barbara is walking home and she gives her leftovers to this homeless guy, Leon. Shout out to Leon. He's crushing it in his 2 scenes. And I think Leon's 2 for 2. I think the guy's great. But he's setting up his his bed on the bench. This reminded me of the homeless people in Back to the Future that like Marty McFly like talks to. Like they all know each other, which I just think is such an interesting choice. But she gives him dinner to show that she has a heart, and this will come into play later to show her degrading humanity. But then this drunk Trump supporter rolls up and is trying to put the moves on Barbara, and he's getting a little touchy, and she, is struggling to walk in heels, which is something that they've shown us a couple times. And this guy says he's just trying to help her walk home, and why is she refusing his help? Which, gentlemen out there listening, don't be like this dude. Just don't. It's not cool. But there's a flash of wind, and Diana just fucking puts this guy on his ass and throws him in the trash.
Puts a couple of his ribs through his back.
Yeah, seriously. So she like claims that it's simple self-defense and shifting weight, and she can teach Barbara how to do it sometime. And, this leads, Barbara says that she can get home the rest of her way, but she doesn't go home. She goes back to the rock at the Smithsonian, and she makes her wish, and her wish is actually spoken like many of the others that we will see in this movie. And we come to see that she wishes to be like Diana. And I'm trying to remember the exact words, Zach. Maybe you can help me out, but it's like cool, strong, and sexy, right?
Something along those lines. Yeah.
Those are the 3 big ones, because they have 3 distinct scenes of showing her hitting those traits that she wishes for. I think, or like well-liked or something like that. But yeah, so.
And in nowhere in that wish does she say, I also wish that my body could grow hair all over and cheetah pattern and I could become a monster.
Yeah. So Diana goes to bed, kind of sad. And Barbara wakes up the next morning and she fell asleep on her desk. And she instinctively knows when she wakes up to take her skirt off and just wear the leggings with the long tee. Classic look. She's still wearing the heels. She gets out. Guy knocks the mop over. She does her Tobey Maguire catching the food on the tray and like jumps up onto the stool.
Think about that.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you, man. This movie is like very, very Sam Raimi influenced, and I just wish
didn't even make that connection. Fuck, that's hilarious.
Yeah, so she's like very graceful now, and the guy's like, "Wow, Barbara, you're really good in those heels." And then people are like, "Hey, Barbara, looking good," and it's just like they're just laying it on thick, and I was just eating it up. It was great. our introduction now in the flesh, because we've seen him on TV before, but not up until this moment, of Pedro Pascal's Maxwell Lord, who is here to make a generous contribution to the Smithsonian, if you could look around at some of the things. So, but we clearly see that he is only here to look at the Dream Stone, which we'll find out more about that a little later on why he wants to do that. But he's just kind of, intentionally flirting with Barbara to get his way. I do like how he walks around and just like gives people thumbs up.
Yes, okay, so I want to point that out. That is my favorite next to the whole opening scene at the mall. That scene, that moment, that's the kind of humor that I wanted more of in this movie. Is that because there's a long he walks in and he does the whole like life is good, but it can be better. And there's all that stuff. And he's like flirting around, and Pedro Pascal's being funny and charming and charismatic. And then you get to the point where he's like following Barbara to the stone or wherever she's going to take him. And there's this long wide shot of the janitor at the end of the hallway. And then Pedro Pascal's like walking, and he just goes, as he like walks by this guy and then puts it down and then keeps walking. And I was like, that is so funny. I want more of that. Like just kind of like that kind of like self-aware humor.
When I first watched this movie, I thought it was going to be like Spider-Man Far From Home. And he was like giving the janitor a thumbs up because he had told the janitor to like be nice to her.
Sure.
Like I thought it was a setup, and the same way that like Mysterio is like faking everything. But that would have been very elaborate if Maxwell Lord paid off everyone at the Smithsonian to be nice to Barbara.
But that's another again, an example of a way that you could do this movie on a smaller scale, is that you don't have it be like he actually grants wishes. He just makes people think that he can. It. I actually like that a lot. You got a film on your hands there, Jay.
I know these guys, and I know these comic book characters pretty well. But anyway, it cuts over to a scene that I really like too, which is like they're playing with the artifacts, and he like puts the mask on. He's like, he's like, they're just like tossing stuff around, and Diana comes in, and she's not having any of it.
She's like, what the fuck is happening?
And he's like, Barbara's like, he's going to donate his entire contribution just to our department. He's like, I'm going to announce it at the gala tonight. I would love it if you guys would come, wear something really nice. And then, so he's gonna make this contribution. But the next scene is really interesting because we come to find out that when he gets to his office, there's nobody there besides Raquel, his receptionist. And we find out that he is faking things. So
it's not just that he's faking things, but he's also he has this company that has made him money, but it's like almost gone, and he's like dwindling out.
Right. Or it never made money, and he spent all the money to get going, and he couldn't get oil. Yeah, because Black Gold is the company that he works for, which is an oil conglomerate in the United States. He's a divorced parent, and he has a son, Alistair, who he has for the weekend. And whenever he sees his son, he's trying to put on a facade that, he's a successful businessman. He just wants his kid to be proud of him, kind of. But at this point in the movie, he's more focused on he wants to be successful for himself. And via that, he thinks his son will respect him. But little does he know, just like their parents, he just doesn't know that. I like this part because it's a deep comic book connection. I don't know if you remember this character, but at the Black Gold office is a guy named Simon Stagg, who's a business partner.
He's the guy that's waiting for him in his office, right?
Right. But do you know Simon Stagg? Do you remember the other big DC thing that he's been in?
No.
He's in Batman Arkham Knight. He's that scientist that has the Zeppelin balloon above the city.
Oh, really?
Who had originally developed the Cloudburst. And in the comics, Simon Stagg is a horribly corrupted businessman who tries to create metahumans, which is where characters like, and you're not going to know who this is, but Metamorpho is created. The Element Man, also known as, or Element Dog, who is just Metamorpho, but he's a dog.
Oh my God, comic books.
With it's wild, dude. It's wild. But I was loving it. The guy was. Anyway, in this movie, he's a business partner and he wants his investment back and calls him a loser in front of his kid. And we get one of my favorite deliveries where he's like, I'm not the loser. He's the loser. It's just like,
yeah, it's great.
Pedro Pascal is great, man. I love him.
Hamming it up.
Yeah. So before this gala, and the glow up at the mall. And she's got the sleek black dress and the cheetah heels. Our first little subtle mention of who she's going to become. And once we get to the gala, we get more fantastically creepy 80s men who are trying to hit on Diana and Barbara, and they're just blowing them off. I love the guy, and by love, I mean this sarcastically, who comes into Diana. He's like, I'm interning at the White House. I've had my eye on you for a very long time. We should go. And she's like, not interested. Just like,
I love it. It's like, she's like pushing people like this way. Yeah.
Yeah. So while they're at the gala, Max, comes up and he's laying it on pretty thick with Barbara about how she has the glow up and how it's really noisy and he wants to go somewhere quiet. So he gets her to convince him to the office so that he can, put the moves on
again,
like grab the rock while he's making out with her. Which good sleight of hand there, my guy.
Yeah, it's again like I think Pedro Pascal is the best. I don't want to skip too far ahead for like John's DCEU questions, but like I think Pedro Pascal is the best thing about this movie. I think that he's funny, he's charming, his acting is good, his delivery is good. He does the best with what's given to him in a script department. And I think that one of the funny things is that like he goes from like goofy businessman with this big thing and he's like doing all this stuff to then it goes to this scene where I actually think he does a great job of pulling off that sort of like skeezy Trumpian business kind of person where he's like he clearly
they clearly made him look like Art of the Deal, Donald Trump.
But he
and
knows
this movie
that,
is supposed to come out before the election, so that should go to show you that
he knows that Barbara is like susceptible to this kind of thing, or he has a read on her, and so he's like, well, if I can be forward with her, and she's just going to go along with it because she's never had someone of this high power be this like romantically involved in her or whatever. So it's skeezy. Yeah,
it's very creepy. Anyway, sorry, where were we at? So we're still at the gala. He got the rock. Yeah. He's like holding it behind her back while he's like bending her over the desk, which is interesting. Very, very arousing, I guess, for some. Just kidding. But while we're at the gala, after Diana blows off Carl, the intern from the office or the White House office, this guy in a leather jacket is like, Diana, and he sounds a lot like Zach, and she's like, I don't know who you are, and keeps walking away, and he's like, Diana, and she's like, go away, and then he drops the quote from the first movie.
I wish we had
more time. And she turns around and she's like, what? Why did you say that? She's doing the very much like, why did you say that name? Bringing some PTSD into it.
How awesome would that be if they found a way to have someone in this movie like say Martha?
That'd be amazing. Amazing. I was hoping, sidebar real quick, I was hoping in the montage at the end of people renouncing their wishes, we would have got a young Bruce Wayne.
Yep.
Wishing for his parents to come back.
Yep. This was
like, I feel like that was shot somewhere and then they didn't put it in the movie.
It was at least in some sort of like writer's room section.
There's a really cool version of that scene where we get to see like a young Clark and a young Bruce Wayne, or maybe even a young Momoa. We know how we love that actor who played young Jason. You're telling me that my mom died because of me? God, he does like that head rock the whole scene. You know what I'm talking about? Where
he's like shooting a rap video for like he's like fucking throwing arms everywhere.
That guy sucked. We're the best, Lannis. Anyway, so this guy is a charming looking man, but he plops this modern watch in her hand in the same way that Steve does, and we get the Michael Bay spin around shot where it goes around the people like 5 times, and then his face changes and we see him as Chris Pine. And she does the Steve, and then they, make out in the middle of the gala, but then they leave together. So this is going to set up an interesting thing.
Yes, it does.
But they're walking along the National Mall, and Steve is back, and shout out to National Mall. Good look at our Washington Monument that we see in Spider-Man Homecoming as well. Getting a lot of glow ups. Also a national treasure. But I like, so this is part of the movie that I do like, and I'm curious to see what you think about it. I like that Steve is the fish out of water.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because he has all these funny throwaway things that I didn't pick up on the first time, but I love how he's like, I woke up on this weird pillow bed with slats and a futon. He's like, yeah, a futon. And he's looking up at the planes and he's like, that's amazing. Like, he's living in this world of wonder, which I do appreciate, as much as I don't like that he just inhabits somebody's body.
And here's the thing is that I bet you in the writer's room in Patty Jenkins' head, like, she was thinking like, what a genius twist. Like, the first movie, Diana is a fish out of water, and she learns about the world and learns that it's not black and white and that it's pretty gray, and that there's like, people that you trust, people that you don't trust, and what do you do for the world to be better, make the world a better place? And they're like, what if we flip that? And in the second movie, Steve Trevor is the fish out of water, and Diana has to teach him something, but at the same time, she learns something about herself too. But they didn't bother to think the best way to get there. They just wanted to get there as fast as possible.
Yeah. Shocker that the DCEU unit wants to rush things. Right. So they get back to, I'm going to call him Steve's apartment, and he's showing her around. I love the part where he's like, yeah, I like woke up and I saw you. And I tried to go visit you, but I couldn't get the bike to work. And he like picks up the spin cycle bike that doesn't have wheels because he doesn't know that people just do that for exercise. And she just kind of chuckles. And anyway, we get the scene where he's looking at himself in the mirror, and we see the guy that he's inhabiting, but Steve's the person that's not in the mirror, and it's setting up that this is what the world sees him as.
And so
he's like, this. I love when he's like, this guy's got it, and she's like, all I see is you.
And here's a question that I have
from our perspective, that's how we're going to see him for the rest of the movie.
Does she see Steve?
That's it. I think that might be why she has sex with the dude, is she doesn't see him as anybody else. Unless she saw him at the gala as the way he was, and then it magically changed.
That's what I thought, is that she can't see this guy. Like, the mirror thing is like the Back to the Future photo thing, where it's like only in certain instances can you see the reflection of this dude. But in Diana's eyes, she sees Steve Trevor, but nobody else does. Everyone else just sees dude.
Right. Yeah, I think that's pretty clear.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why I thought it was funny that he travels the world with her. And I wonder if the guy's family is like, is that her son in Cairo? It's wonderful. Yeah. So we get Max back at his office now, and he has the Dreamstone, and his wish is to become the Dreamstone itself. And the Dreamstone dissolves into sand, drops the little ring off of it with the inscription. And he kind of like hits him, like a Dementor face. And the wind is like blowing everywhere. Like there's a big wish to become the Dreamstone itself.
It's like it's like the One Ring. It's trying to find its purpose, and its purpose is to like, change bodies or whatever.
Yeah. And we see a little short scene of Barbara ripping the fridge door off. Again, a very Tobey Maguire type thing, where she's now imbued with some hardcore strength. And that it's not the right next scene, but it's pretty soon after. This is a big editing issue that I have, but they do like 2 15-second scenes split up with a Diana scene in the middle, and they could have just done them back to back. But there's also a scene for like pumping iron at the gym, which I think is kind of funny.
Yeah, that was a funny scene. I like that.
Hoists it above her head, and everyone's like, "Whoa, man!"
Also, Kristen Wiig in that leotard or whatever, she looked great.
There's the next scene that is pretty great is Diana wakes up in bed with Steve, and he's munching on a Pop-Tart. And he's like, and I love that she's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I've been up for a while. I've already had 2 boxes of Pop-Tarts and 3 pots of coffee." So just like, he's like making up for lost time in the afterlife, not having the delicacies of the world. But I think I love how Pop-Tarts is the thing superhero movies bank on. Like Thor, he eats all the Pop-Tarts too. It's just like, do you like Pop-Tarts?
Interesting. I didn't really even think about that. Yeah, Pop-Tarts are in a couple different superhero movies.
It's just like this thing that, like, I bet you if aliens came to this world, they're like, what the hell is this? I love it. Give me more. Pop-Tarts.
Pop-Tarts
American
superhero
Creation.
movie. I'm trying to see if there's like a connection here. Pop-Tarts were in Deadpool
People
too,
like
right?
Pop-Tarts. I think so.
Interesting. Yeah, Pop-Tarts are fine. They're fine.
So they're like, he's like, we should just stay in this house forever. There's Pop-Tarts, there's coffee, we can lay in bed. And she's like, that sounds great, but we should probably find a boy back from the dead and he's inhabiting another man's body, I think is what she says. So
no,
like,
she
she's
doesn't.
cognizant of it.
I don't think she says that. I think she just says we should probably figure out a reason why my boyfriend is back from the dead or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, and he's like,
I could be
that
wrong.
sounds good. No, I think you're right. So before we get to their montage of him checking out these, we get a scene of Max confronting Simon. And this is our first instance of him using his powers to grant a wish to somebody. And then he inherently knows, and again, this is just movie magic, but he knows to take something from somebody. Like he knows if he grants a wish, like the monkey's paw, he can take something for himself or take something away. And so he gets Simon to wish that all the oil plots that he had bought up that were dry would actually begin to run. And he takes, what does he take from Simon? I'm trying to remember.
Doesn't he just take his stake in the company or whatever? Like
that's what it is. Yeah. His stake, and he somehow wishes that like there'd be a way that he could get off his back somehow. I don't remember the wording, but anyway, the ITC shows up and they're about to send Simon to jail for fraud. So, and he's like, oh, I love the part where he's walking. He's like, oh no, are we in danger? And they're like, no worries. We're just here for Simon's stag. And he's like, it's just so fun. He's great in this movie.
Yeah, he is.
So then we get a scene that we got a glimpse of in the trailer, which is Steve trying to find something to in the real world, which is just a montage of him trying on different crazy 80s clothes, including the fanny pack and the scarf. It's kind of a really cheesy scene. The parachute pants. Does everyone parachute now? I do like how he loves the Nikes. I think that's pretty funny, you know. And he's like, "Can we keep the shoes?" And she's like, "Fine, yes." And he's like, "Yes, let's keep the shoes." I think it's weird though that they have this whole scene, and he still just wears the outfit that he wore the night before.
Yeah,
the black track jacket.
It's completely purposeless.
Mm-hmm. It seems like they added it in later on, but and so this scene I do like is her showing him around DC in the 80s. So he's like, it's like Elf. He's like afraid to ride the escalator at first, and he sees the underground subway in DC, which I'm pretty sure subways were around in the 1910s, but that's okay.
It's from heaven.
Yeah. And he's looking at, and I think it still made me chuckle, even though I saw it in the trailers of, she's like, it's all art, you know, and that's breakdancing. And then he walks up and she's like, no, that's just a trash can. It's just a trash can. And this also transitions into, I thought it was a pretty charming scene, which is, and I'm really glad somebody thought of this, but take him to the Air and Space Museum.
Yeah.
The perfect thing for a pilot,
totally.
like from the 1910s, is to see all the advancements in flight technology, which I thought was a wonderful thing to include. And he is just living it up. I like the astronaut guy. That this is why the movie is so long. It takes the guy 15 seconds to hand him a pamphlet, you know, like the astronaut man, because he's pretending he's in space. So I don't know, but I like that scene a lot. Any comments before?
No, I think that it was cool, and I wanted to see more of this. Again, like I said, having him be the fish out of water, this is so perfect. Like, have him revel in the fact that he's like missed so much. That could be such a great emotional beat. Or he's like, I didn't live long enough to see all of these advancements and everything like that. And another one. Why didn't? Because they can't bring him back in the third movie, right? There's no way that he's coming back in the third movie.
I think he has a contract.
Okay.
I have a theory for how they can bring him back in a way that isn't egregious, and I'll get to it after this plot dive, because I have an idea for the third one.
Well, whether or not they bring him back, a thing that I would have liked to have seen wrestled with is like, and they've done it in other movies as far, I'm trying to come up with an example, but like Diana is this this goddess that doesn't age. She lives forever, and she's this all-powerful being. John, are you frozen again? You look frozen.
Hello?
You froze again.
Yeah, we have a lot of people using the Wi-Fi. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
I just turned it off on my phone to hopefully help.
Yeah, you're fine.
When I was going to close some things on Taskmaster. All right.
What I was saying was that if they bring him back in the third movie, fuck it, whatever. That's lazy as hell, but whatever. They're going to do whatever they're going to do. But like one of the things I would have liked to have seen them wrestled with is that he's brought back. She's the same age, looks exactly the same as when they were young. And it's like, he's like, you're just going to go on for the rest of your life and be the same person. But I'm like, even if I am back, I'm going to grow old and like die. And it's like, that's a deep thing that these two people that are connected emotionally have to deal with. And like, I would have loved to have seen a little bit of that too. Yeah. The Captain America Peggy thing is like the best example of it, but yeah.
So what I will tell you is they do that in the comics and in the Justice League cartoon where she meets him in World War II and then she goes and sees him at a nursing home when she in the modern day. So they've done that before, but I think they didn't want to, because they already stole a lot from Captain America, the first Avenger in the first Wonder Woman movie. I think they didn't want to do that again. So
this movie doesn't steal anything from Winter Soldier. Not a thing.
It could have probably taken a couple of things to help out, but it did not. So we go back to Max. He gets back to the Black Gold. Phone's ringing off the hook. Raquel, where's my vitamins? She's not answering. She's upstairs. All the oil springs are shooting up, and they got investors. They got people wanting to make investments, tacking on. She's like, I can't do this. And, we get another. I love how he does this. He like tricks people into making that he wants them to make. He's like, wish that you had help. And she's like, yes, I do wish that. And then this guy immediately comes in. He's like, I was supposed to apply somewhere else, but and he's like, you're hired. And so people are just, popping in now, and we see how these wishes are working. And he's able to, kind of leverage that to become successful.
Yeah.
Which we go next to Barbara being cool. So we already saw her being strong, and now she's cool. Everyone at work is talking to her, and she's talking about how all the reading overnight has cleared her vision impairment. She doesn't need her glasses anymore. So I was really hoping they'd do the Toby thing where she puts them on.
And then it's all fuzzy.
Puts them down. But Wonder Woman and Steve show up, and she's like, where's the stone? And she's like, oh, well, Max bought it. I gave it to him. He made the donation. He should be able to do whatever he wants. And they kind of get into a little spit-spat about it. And essentially, this is just a way to set up the fact that they're going to go to the Black Gold conglomerate office. When they get there, tons of people outside really coming to work. The dream or the wishes worked. And they're going to sneak in. And we get our first instance of Wonder Woman's powers kind of beginning to fail, I think. But this one's very subtle. She can't like break the lock immediately. She like tries to pull it and then she has to like bust it, which is interesting. And I love the throwaway line of just like strong lock. So again, setting up this thing that's going to become more of a problem a little later on.
And that's another Toby Spider-Man connection that we didn't even talk about, is that Spider-Man loses his mojo in Spider-Man 2 and she loses her powers.
Exactly, dude. They stole it.
My bag.
I'm Spider-Man.
My
no
bag.
More.
Did you know that was one of the proposed titles for Spider-Man 2? They were thinking about calling Spider-Man 2 Spider-Man No More.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the name of the story in the comics, so that doesn't surprise me that much.
It was that they were they were deciding between Spider-Man No More, Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man 2 Lives.
That sounds like a Fast and the Furious title. Fast and the Furious 2 Lives.
2 Spider, 2 Man.
Yep, there you go. So Diana and Steve are in the Black Gold office. They sneak into Max's office because everyone's really busy. And they see that he has all these drawings of the stone on his desk. Clearly he's been looking for this for a long time. And Diana sees the ring that was around the rock and sees that there's a Lord of the Rings inscription on the inside in the language of the gods. And she just now knows that the rock is a phony, but the incantation is real. And Steve is so smart, he looks in the garbage and finds for his plane ticket, which like who throws their boarding pass receipt in the garbage?
Yeah, I have no idea.
It's so weird. Anyway, they see that Max is going to Cairo. Because earlier we saw him looking at the King of Crude magazine where the largest oil man lives in Cairo and he's jealous. So He's going to go there to get more oil. He's going to go get more power, which is why he wasn't at the office. So they need to get to Cairo. Steve doesn't have a passport. So the next logical step is to steal a plane.
Wonder Woman, the American Patriot. Let's hijack a fucking jet, and we'll get into the problems with this here in a second.
Yes, so they break into an airfield in DC, and they get into a jet, which again, Steve is kind of like gawking over all the planes. And I don't really have much of this. I know some people hate that he shouldn't be able to fly a jet, but again, he teaches with someone else how to fly. So I feel like if it's just wind and air and how to ride it, it should be fine. He should be able to learn how to fly this jet.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where when it was happening, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I was thinking about it. I was like, huh, that's weird. Like, he probably shouldn't know how to fly this really advanced plane, but I was like, whatever. It wasn't so egregious that, and they show him having some struggles taking off. He flips a bunch of switches. And I mean, maybe a pilot, Radiovania fans out there, if you're a pilot and you listen, please write us at radiovaniashow@gmail.com and tell us if a pilot from 1901 would be able to fly a plane in 2020.
1984, but yeah.
1984, sorry.
I'm a driver. I'm a flyer. So anyway, so they get in the plane and they're going to take off, and, they know that they're stealing it. So he's like, don't worry, the way I fly, they're never going to be able to find us. And she's like, oh shit, I forgot to tell you about radar. Can't explain what it is, but they're going to know where we are wherever. And I love this line where he just goes, well, shit, Diane.
Shit, Diane. Yeah, that was a good one. That got me.
Yeah, and this is a cool part where because I love how they tie it together a little bit. Because in the comics, she just has an invisible plane. She has the invisible jet. She's always had it. I love how they make it invisible. I thought that was pretty cool. And I love the part where she's like, I tried it once on a coffee cup and I lost it. But essentially, she's been working on the spell that Zeus used to hide Themyscira from the world to hide the plane. So we get an invisible jet, Zach. Good little nostalgia placement here.
Yeah.
The way she does it is really goofy, but I do like the scene of them flying amongst the fireworks on the 4th of July. I think that was really cool.
Yeah, I have two problems. I really like this. I really wanted to like this scene more than I did, just because it's like, it's fucking cool. I didn't expect them to do the invisible jet, and it's cool when it shows up. But like just the delivery, I wish that there was just a more clever way, or to seed this earlier in the movie. But she just goes, my father taught me to do something and make it invisible. And it's like out of nowhere. It's like you could have easily earlier in the movie, like had her like drop something or maybe she has to hide something on her desk, like a small thing. And she's able to kind of like quickly do it to hide it. Then it seeds that in your mind. And you're like, oh, how's that going to come back? And then when she does it, it's less obvious that she has to spell it out. She's like, I'm going to make this thing invisible.
I'm going to make this pencil disappear.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that, again, just bad writing. Like, this is another, I don't know, bad writing. I don't want to sugarcoat it. Is they want to have this amazing set piece where Diana and Steve are flying through this beautiful, colorful thing in this invisible jet and make it a big moment. So all of a sudden there's been no mention of it for the entire movie. And then Steve just goes,
4th of July.
Says, look, it's the 4th of July. What the fuck? You just had to drop that out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It was so weird, man. So weird.
It is. It looks cool though.
It did look, in all fairness, it looked beautiful, and the colors are so vibrant, and the music is swelling and the emotion is there. And it's like, in the moment, I was like, I can forgive this because I'm enjoying what it's saying. But like, oh my God, just terrible writing there.
Well, this scene, once they're above the clouds, see kind of like the colored clouds because of the fireworks, is when she, asks him, like, I was always amazed how you could do this flying. It seems like something that I could never do. And he's just like, it's really, simple. He says it's wind and air, how to ride it, and how to catch it, and how to join with it. So mark that down because that's going to come up a little later on. But, just making flying seem really easy. Thanks, Steve. It's a really hard thing to learn how to do. Just ask Harrison Ford. He still can't do it. So, zing.
Yeah. Ooh, yikes.
Just kidding, Harrison. I don't want you to crash anymore, please. And so our next scene is Barbara is going through microfiche film, and she's trying to figure out the source of the stone because Diana asked her to earlier. And this guy is, he's like getting her more stuff to look at, and he's just going for it. And she's like, no, I don't need you. I'm done with you. But she's running home, and we got all these guys catcalling her, including our drunk friend from the park earlier. And she turns around and, she's like, I don't think you should be bothering people anymore. And he's just like clearly intoxicated still. And she just puts the shit smacking down on him. She's throwing him around. And I've been waiting to talk to you about this. When she's like, it is easy. I could do this all night long. I was like, oh my God, I could do this all day. I'm going to fucking freak out. And I know Zach's going to lose his mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's just kicking this dude around, super strength. And Leon shows up again, my guy shooting threes. And he's like,
what are you doing to this guy?
And, yeah. And she's just like, mind your own business, and then runs away. So again, it's showing her degrading humanity, which we will come to find out is what she's losing as she becomes her apex predator.
And someone on Twitter, I think, mentioned the fact that like this is happening outside of like a government building, and that truck that's parked there is like it looks like an armored truck, right? Maybe it's just a regular ass moving truck or whatever. But
at the truck.
Regardless, she makes a man-sized indent into this thing, and it's like, that guy should be dead. That guy should be.
Yeah, well, he should have been dead from when
broken.
Diana threw him. He probably would have whiplash, but yeah. It's the same thing where, like, in BVS, when Clark flies that guy through the wall when he saves Lois, that guy would have gotten his neck snapped instantly. But anyway. So Max is in Cairo with the King of Crude, and he's meeting with him, and they're discussing, and he's talking about how he is able to provide things that other people can't. And he's like, I can provide wishes. He doesn't quite say it like that. I'm doing it injustice, but he's leading this guy to make a wish again too. And the guy, he's like, I wish I could have my ancestral realm returned to me. All those that impose upon it could be kept out. And Max is like, your wish is granted. I'm just going to take all your oil from you. And the guy's like, I don't have it. I sold it to the Saudis. And he's like, well, fine, then I'll take your army. So he just leaves with this guy's security force. And this giant rock wall begins to erect itself around the city of Cairo. Again, the build a wall symbolism here is pretty ham-fisted.
Yeah.
And now the news reports are starting to cover up all these things. And Max is escaping in a caravan of the security force, and Steve and Diana have arrived in Cairo in their invisible jet. And I don't know why they couldn't fly the jet to Cairo, but they're taking a taxi there now.
Yeah, what the fuck? I didn't even think about that until just now.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense that they wouldn't just land in Cairo. But so they're driving to Cairo in a taxi, and they see the caravan go by, and Diana's like, that's him. And they buy the taxi off of the dude, and they're chasing after, and we get our Indiana Jones chase sequence, but with superheroes, which I think this is a pretty fun action scene. I love any DC action scene that's in the daylight. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I liked everything about this action sequence except for the very end with like her swinging to grab the kids was like just so cheesy looking, and the CGI of them rolling on the street is just like, ooh, no. No.
The big thing to take away from it is that she gets shot and she's not healing, or the bullets aren't bouncing off of her, and she loses her grip on the lasso. She swings to save the kids out of the way, and she falls, and they tumble around, which like if they would have hit the ground that hard. Same thing with the drunk guy; those kids would have been smushed. So, So she saves them, and Steve is beginning to notice that she is, not healing properly.
She's on the struggle bus.
And we get a little news overture of them talking about how Maxwell Lord has claimed the world's majority oil fissures and like that. And this is causing the run on gas in the 80s. So they're doing the alternate Tarantino history type deal. Very, very minuscule, though, as opposed to Days of Future Past, which did the fucking Cuban Missile Crisis. So, and Diana and Barbara are talking on the phone from Cairo, and they find out that the stone has originated and has traveled through multiple civilizations. And the key thing here is that it's ripped all the civilizations apart. and led to their complete extinction. And the last civilization that it seemed to travel to was the Mayans. And Barbara has tracked down a guy who lives in DC whose ancestors are Mayans. So apparently he's the only Mayan. So they're going to go talk to this guy, which this is a scene I absolutely do not like. Yeah.
Again, here's another one of those examples where the Barbara introduction scene, I shouldn't be thinking of Amazing Spider-Man 2 in your major motion picture because that movie's trash. In the same breath, I shouldn't be reminded of Transformers Revenge of the Fallen or whatever, where remember they go to hunt down whatever John Turturro and they try to find this conspiracy guy. I was like, why am I being reminded of Transformers right now?
Yeah, it's not good. It's not what you want.
Bad news bears.
So they go meet this Mayan guy whose name is Frank. And
is there a purpose to that? Is this guy a character in the DC universe?
Not that I know of. So this is a scene that has been shortened and not even including this guy. Zach, have you ever heard of the Library of Congress?
It's the biggest
the largest library in the world, and that book would be on file there. They could have just gone there.
Yeah, totally.
Anyway, they're looking into the book inscription, and he says that Frank, I should say, says that his civilization had two options. They could destroy the stone, which they couldn't do, or they could renounce their wish, which none of them could agree to do. So we see that is the two ways to take care of the stone. Well, they can't destroy it because Diana asked Maxwell Lord where the stone was in the car chase, and he goes, "You're looking at it."
Again, so another moment. I love the cheese ball of that.
Yeah. So he's like a Gene Hackman, Lex Luthor type.
Totally
he's crushing it in this movie.
Oh man, Pedro Pascal would have actually made a really good Lex Luthor. Damn.
Jesse Eisenberg. So Steve brings up that maybe they should renounce their wish, and Barbara's like, "I don't want to renounce my wish. Like, why should your wishes be a bad thing?" And she leaves. She's out of there. She's like, "I don't want to do that. I'm powerful, sexy, and cool." And Steve's talking to Diana about it, and I do like. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes here, but
no, you're good.
Yeah. So there's a scene coming up, and we'll just do it now, even though it might be a little bit out of order. But they're back at Diana's apartment, and he's like, "I think you need this." I love the part where she's like, "I give all the time, like every day, and I'm grateful for it, and I don't question it. But the one thing that I want, I can't have," which is a really interesting that I really wish they would have dealt with, and maybe they could have done that without him even being in the movie. But I thought that part was really interesting.
Yeah.
Max, on the other hand, is just wheeling and dealing these wishes. You know, he's talking to like a televangelist who is like a porno. He's talking to like these guys from Iraq and all these other things. And we see that the wishes are starting to kind of like drain his body, like it's eating his body away. He's dying, and he's freaking out. And the guy comes in and he's like, "You got Alistair again this weekend?" He's like, "Again? How many weekends is that?" And poor Alistair is just outside and
that sucks.
Gets really sad and runs away. And I love the part where he's like, "Buy Alistair a pony. You know what? No, buy him a race car. Get him a race car." And
is this the part where he's like, one of my favorite moments is like, he grabs the taxi driver and he's like, "Don't you wish the traffic would part like the Red Sea or whatever?"
Well, that's coming up. So
he's
talking about how, he's like, he's talking about how he needs to touch a lot of people, to the televangelist. Like, I need a lot of people, which I guess we are led to believe, and we'll see later on, is so that he can take more from them and to rebuild his life force. He's not taking enough big things. But he does talk to Alistair real quick about wishes, and Alistair makes a wish for his greatness. But before he wishes for his greatness, he almost wishes for him to be with him, which I think is really interesting, because I wanted to see if you thought that when he started to say, like, "I just wish you could be here with me," and like Maxwell Lord cuts him off, do you think that wish kind of sunk in already? Because he does wind up being with him by the end of it. And he mentions this thing where he's like, "I knew my wish would come true." Or am I reading too far into it?
I don't know. To me, I want to say that it would have been like, "I wish you could be more in kid speak, I think it was like, I wish you could be more present, or like, I wish you could be my dad, or something.
That's what I'm
like
saying. Like, I feel like that's his actual wish, and that actually went to fruition, because everyone only gets one that we know of, except for the cheetah.
Wouldn't Alistair renounce his wish too in the ending thing or whatever?
Maybe that's what it is. He wishes for his greatness, and that's the one that he renounces. I don't know. Anyway, then he gets to the taxi guy, because he's going to go to the president. He needs to find a way to touch a lot of people. So that's a great part, though, where he's like, don't you wish the traffic would part like the Red Sea? And he's like, yeah, I wish that not going to happen.
I feel like I'm going to say that anytime I'm in the car now.
Yeah. So we see that Washington, D.C. is kind of in disarray with cows, and like cars are smashing into each other. There's tons of, what do they say, Porsches driving around. Like everyone's wishing for Porsches.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is the scene that we get at Diana and Steve in her apartment about how, she can't have the one thing she wants, but she gives every day. And this also leads to her setup of having a bunch of monitors where she monitors the news. That's her way of like Batcave computer, which I think is funny that earlier she lied about not having a TV, and she has like 14 TVs in her closet.
Yeah.
And we also see there's a golden armor in there that looks like an eagle, and Steve asks about it, and we get a little
wrapped up in a fucking plastic brown paper bag. It looks terrible.
And it's the armor of Asteria, one of the great Themysciran warriors, who was the last person to hold off men as they escaped to their paradise island. And if you know anything about Wonder Woman, you recognize Linda Carter's piercing eyes as soon as they show that little sequence there. But don't worry, they'll bring her back later on, so you really know who it is. And so this is our scene where they see on the TV all the cars veering out of the way as Maxwell's car is driving through traffic. And Max is visiting our guy, Ronald Reagan, the president, not the actor, just in case you're wondering. And in the world of deep faking, I'm glad that they choose to just cast people that look like presidents as opposed to CGIing. I think that could be really, I'm sure they probably wouldn't be able to get approval, but
I mean, I wish they would just cast actors to play people all the time, Yeah,
I know. They cast the guy that looked like Nixon in Days of Future Past too, and I thought that was really good. But anyway, Max is able to make Reagan wish for more nukes. Bad look for Ronald Reagan here. More nukes than the Russians is what he's saying. He's like, those Russians, we never can keep up. And so Max grants his wish, and in return he takes his power, right? And he's like, I want to be treated like my own civilization with complete autonomy. Yeah. So he wants to have he pretty much just wants to have political access to everything in the United States. And he sees Reagan's got these blueprints for a satellite dish that they are going to use to spy on people's television. And he says that it was explained to him as particle beams that can touch everything. And Max is like, I got to get to that. Give me a chopper. Get to the chopper.
It's awesome how his leap of logic is like, oh, you have a thing that you can broadcast to everyone's television. I can use that to mind control everyone somehow. I don't know. Get their wishes. I don't know. Leap of logic there.
It doesn't make a lot of sense, but whatever. At this point, you have to wonder if he is the Dreamstone itself. Does the Dreamstone just know inherently how these things work? Because if that's the case, then that makes sense to me.
That's a good point. It's more he's more the stone than he is himself.
Or if the stone is the essence of the God of Lies, and the God of Lies would probably figure this stuff out in the same way that Ares was able to manipulate all of World War I. So there's that. But anyway, as he's making his way to the chopper, Diana and Steve get into the White House because they use Carl, the intern. And we get our little fight sequence here within the White House where she's starting to take some damage still. Steve is fist fighting dudes. He does the thing that Jon Favreau does in Iron Man 2 where he's fighting one guy the whole time and she's fighting everybody else, which I thought was kind of funny. I still love the part that we saw in the trailers where she gun and then smacks the bullet with the gauntlet, cool. And it breaks a pot that knocks Max down, which is pretty funny. But as they're about to escape, Barbara shows up and she is not here to play sidekick anymore, Zach. And she's got her full cheetah regalia on, and she doesn't want to relinquish her power.
They should have just kept her in this outfit for the rest of the movie, man.
I agree. This part was great. She looks cool. But she just whips ass, and they're able to take down Diana, and Max is able to escape. And this is a cool part where Diana's, and this isn't the first time she's going to lie, or the last time she's going to lie on the floor and talk to people. But she's like lying on the floor, slumped over and all bloody. And she's like, what is it costing you to have your wish granted? Like your humanity, your joy. And she's like, well, ask yourself what's costing you. And she like pretty much just owns the fact that, Diana's losing her powers, and now she knows it. So kind of grinding here to the end. This is where it starts to get wild. So buckle up.
Yeah.
So Barb is able to board the chopper with Max. So they're there together now. We get sequences of the Soviets taking the nuke development as a threat, and they're getting ready to launch their own nukes in return. So this is where I wrote down that this seems like Jeff Johns stuff, because he always does nuclear holocaust as he loves Watchmen, and that's a main part of the Watchmen comic book is the imminent, nuclear threat that Adrian Veidt then thwarts big squid monster. And it just seems like they were trying to do something like that. And it doesn't necessarily pay off as it does is make it kind of messy at the end. But
the whole nuclear world's about to end thing is just so it's so chaotic, and there's no focus. And I'm sure, I don't know if you're going to talk about it right now, so stop me if I'm about to breach on something, but there's the scene in the diner with the two people. It's I get that that's supposed to have weight, but it just seems so goofy and not realistic at all.
Yeah. Yeah, we're almost to that part, but pretty much the entire world is in madness. People are fighting. There's that cop that's on the radio. He's like, what are you supposed to do? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. He's getting really sad. But this is our moment where Steve convinces Diana to renounce her wish. And she does. It's kind of sad. We get to see Steve die twice, essentially. And I do like that as soon as she does it, she can't bear to look at him. But I love how she walks away and says, I renounce my wish. And then she just starts full on sprinting. Cool shot. And she's off into the sky, and she's able to incorporate what Steve taught her, and she's learning how to fly without the jet. So let me ask you this. Wonder Woman being able to fly?
As someone that doesn't have a huge attachment to the character and the lore, I'm fine with it. I always thought that she could fly.
So in some versions she can. In the more modern versions, obviously when she was originally created, she needed the invisible jet to get places. It's this weird hybrid of can she just jump really high? Can she fly? And I like how
she's falling with style.
Exactly. She's Buzz Lightyearing this shit, man. Not really flying as much as just riding the wind, So
yeah, she's whoosh, and hitting lightning bolts and getting all that shit. I like that. Those visuals I liked quite a bit.
Yeah. So Max and Barbara are on the chopper. And he's like, I got to take something back. As you can see, I can regain each organ by organ. And he's like, but you've already had your wish granted, but I'm feeling generous. Maybe I can grant you another one. And she wishes, and this is key, because she doesn't wish to be a cat monster. She wishes to be unlike anyone, is what she says. And she wants to be an apex predator. So how the wish translates that into
no fucking idea. No clue.
Cheetah cat makes no sense, because in the comics, Barbara, archaeologist, and she travels to this African jungle where they worship a cat god. And it's kind of like Suicide Squad, where she finds a totem that grants her the ability to be the cheetah monster. It's like the Black Panther title. It turns you into a cat person, and you're the protector of that village. So that's how she gets in the comics. It makes a little more sense.
Interesting.
And then the leap from apex predator to cheetah monster. I know they wanted to blow their full load in the same way that they did Ocean Master and Black Manta, but I think maybe flesh it out more before she just is automatically a cat monster, because she looked too bad in some parts of it. But I just don't get why that happened.
Yeah. You could have easily had a epic fight, epic showdown with Kristen Wiig and Gal Gadot and not have her be a monster. Like, I don't know what DC's obsession is with having these monster characters at the end of all their movies. Like, we've grown beyond that as a society. Unless your character is fucking Thanos, where it's like the most immaculately constructed CGI thing of all time. Like, maybe take a second and rethink your strategy.
Yeah. Oh, well. So they get to the satellite complex, and Max gets on the teleprompter and tells everyone that he wants to broadcast everywhere. And this is where he starts to be like, make your wish. We can grant your wishes. The world can be what you want it to be. And people start wishing for horrible things. So we get the lady who's like, I wish all you Irish blokes would go back where you came from. And he's like, I wish you dropped dead. And she like has a heart attack, and people are wishing for assault rifles and missiles and to be famous and loved and all this other kind of stuff. And it's just getting out of hand. And, you know, he's taking things from them under his breath at first, like on the TV, you know. And Diana shows up, and she's going to put a stop to this. And she comes in the eagle armor. We get our return of our music, and she's.
But it's like they scored it though. There's no more guitar, so it's like dun 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 dun.
Well, it's all Hans Zimmer in this movie. No Junkie XL for the guitar riff. So, she takes out the like anti-aircraft turrets and stuff like that, and she sees Barbara as the cheetah, and we get the Barbara, what did you do? And we get the showdown of the golden eagle armor versus the cheetah. And it's kind of a crazy, dark, classic DC fight where like you can't really see what's going on. The part that I do like of it is just when she's got the wings wrapped up.
Yeah.
And she's just like banging on it, and you can kind of like see her like pull the things apart. I thought that was pretty cool. And then she just chuck the wings apart. It's when they start swinging around like Anakin and Obi-Wan Kenobi on Mustafar that it gets kind of crazy, and then she electrocutes her for not renouncing her wish and knocks her out. So kind of bummer end to the cheetah character in this movie, unfortunately.
Yeah. I didn't like any of this fight. I thought that the shield thing is cool, but then it's also stupid. It's like, well, this ancient armor just breaks immediately after this one fight.
She's an apex predator, man. The god of lies trumps the armor, I guess, is what we're meant to believe.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I agree. There's literally like all the guys from 300 are banging on it earlier, and it's holding up, and there's one cat.
One cat. It's just one cat.
So Wonder Woman goes inside, and Max is like talking to everybody still, and she's like, you have to renounce your wish. And he's like, why would I? You know, he's like, I can't do this now. He's like, maybe you should wish for your pilot to come back. You could have joined with me. Could have worked around it. And she's like, this is all a lie, and people deserve better. And then Max is like on the radio emitter, and Wonder Woman, the wind is so strong she has to sit down again. So I love that she's just like chilling in parts of this movie. But
they're like, all right,
lasso.
Gal, this is your climactic end speech. It's like, would you like to stand up and do it? Or it's like, no, I'll just sit down.
Yeah, it's been a long day. So she's able to, we'll see, she's able to get the lasso of truth around his ankle. And she does this so that she can use him to broadcast her message to people. And what she's pleading for them is that the truth is all that you have, is what she tells them. And that all of these things are lies, and you renounce your wish and live the truth, which is, you know, the best way to do things, because nothing good can be born from these lies. And people begin to renounce their wish. But Max is also beginning to see that his son is kind of just like running around DC in a nuclear apocalypse about to be. And he starts to feel bad. Can't find him. His son's crying out for him. The bombs are about to go off. Some people are renouncing their wish, but Max eventually renounces his wish. Which great line delivery where he's like, I renounce my wish. And he like does he's such an animated actor, man. I love it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And so he cuts it out and he runs off to go find his son. And we see other people, you know, like, I renounce my wish. I renounce my wish. I renounce my wish. I thought it was interesting that they used the same music from the opening of Batman v Superman in the scene. I don't know if you noticed that, but when that score kicked in, I was like, Hans Zimmer's just recycling music. This is Mr. Phone It In here.
Well, didn't Hans Zimmer thought? I thought he said he was retiring from superhero movies. Didn't he say that recently?
Back. Yep, he's back. He was retiring because remember Affleck. He didn't like Affleck's portrayal of him in BBS. He thought he was too violent. So he's like, I'm walking away from comic books. And then he came back and he's doing stuff again. So just goes to show you kids that if you get the big enough check, you'll come back to do anything. So while this message is going to the world before Max renounces his wish, we do actually get to see Max's backstory. And we found out earlier that he was a Hispanic immigrant, Maxwell Lorenzano. And we see this, it's kind of like the Syndrome backstory where we see that, you know, deep down, he's really just like a good guy who's had a rough time of it. And he gets picked on, he's poor, and kids don't like that he eats tamales, who doesn't like tamales? Like, get off your high horse.
People that don't like tamales.
Yeah, seriously. It's delicious. And so this,
when I was on vacation, I had a goat cheese stuffed tamale pepper. It was fucking dank.
I just like that they humanize him. I think it's cool that he starts out shitty and Barbara starts out nice, and then they switch by the end of it. You know, she loses her humanity, he regains it. It's kind of like Ellie and Abby. Everything comes back to the last one.
Yes, it does. Of course it does.
Always. The nukes vanish. Everything starts to vanish. We see Barbara has changed back to Kristen Wiig. So are we led to believe that she renounced her wish?
I think so. I mean, they don't
or
say
does she
it, but
lose the cat powers because Max renounces his wish?
Does it matter?
I guess not.
I guess it doesn't matter. I don't know. I would assume that like the wishing stone, when it doesn't, the wishing stone at the end of the movie is no longer part of Max. Like, I think it just reincarnates itself as something else, right?
Yeah.
So like maybe it just restarts as a clean slate. I mean, I don't think Cheetah will be back in the third movie, so I don't think she'll have her powers. So
I bet she comes back.
You think so?
Yeah.
Oof, no way. I bet Kristen Wiig feels very burned by this movie.
Maybe. But she also got a fat check, so who knows?
No one's also another interesting thing to point out with the fact that this movie is released on VOD and not in the theater, and there's no press junket for it. Nobody is giving any interviews for this movie. Like, no one's talking about this movie. No one's giving any there's no interviews or like featurettes about anything. Like, they're not doing, cast Q&As. It's like everyone's just kind of fucking silent. Like the week before Christmas, Kristen Wiig hosts Saturday Night Live, and she didn't even promote the movie.
That's why she was there, but she didn't even talk about it. Yeah, it was weird. Well,
so we're winding down, right? We're at the very end.
We're about to bring this invisible jet in for a landing, but yeah. Right. So all the wishes have been renounced. We're led to believe. Max goes off to prison, but he gets to reunite with his son, who says he'll always love him because he's his dad. Very touching. Now we get what I think is definitely a scene that was added once they found out that they were going to be released over Christmas, which is Christmas in DC.
100%.
Yeah, these kids are throwing snowballs, and Diana's looking around, and Faux Steve is wearing the scarf outfit and comes out, and she sees him, and clearly she's thinking to herself, I fucked that dude. And he
I know
has
what your
no
dick
idea.
Looks like.
Yeah, and he has no idea. And she's like, I like your outfit. And he's like, thanks, you made my day. Have a happy holiday. And he like goes off, and you're just like, this poor guy. He has no idea.
So two things about this scene. The first, what are you gonna bring up? Are you gonna bring up something else about this scene?
I was just gonna say the movie actually closes on a red balloon floating off in the sky, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah,
like a star balloon, which looks like the star on the Wonder Woman Crown comics. But
so two things about the last scene in the snow scene. Yeah, it's clearly a reshoot. But did you notice that? I don't know where you were watching it on HBO Max on a like your TV in your living room is a 1080p, right? Like a high definition television.
Mm-hmm.
That last scene is shot in IMAX. Did you notice that? Like the aspect ratio changes and it's shot in IMAX. What the what a random ass scene to shoot in IMAX. Usually you want an IMAX. because IMAX cameras to shoot those scenes are prohibitively expensive. Like it's like thousands and thousands of dollars per second of film. And they chose to use an IMAX camera to shoot this stupid ass scene in like Central Park or whatever. It's like, it's terrible. It looks awful.
I have no idea.
And then the other thing too is that the two kids that are throwing snowballs and the guy that's like on the merry-go-round, that's Gal Gadot's real husband and children.
Oh, that's cute. That's cute. I didn't know that. Thank you for the Easter egg.
Yeah, no problem.
But we actually get a mid-credit stinger. So we see this woman with dark raven-esque hair, kind of like Gal Gadot, walking in a crowd, and this like lamppost falls and she catches it with one hand before it can smash a baby. And this lady's like, "Thank you, you saved him." And she's like, and she turns around and it's Linda Carter. And she's like, "I didn't catch your name." And she's like, "Asteria." And she's like, "Well, thank you so much. How did you do that?" And she's like, "Oh, just a little shift of weight. I've been doing this a long time." And she winks at the camera.
Literally winks at the camera.
I thought it was delightful.
I mean, yeah, it's like total cheese. And I wish more of the movie was like this. It would have made this scene a little bit more digestible. But to me, it's like, A, it's cool having Linda Carter there. B, it's kind of goofy that it's like just comes out of nowhere. I don't know. I mean, you also have the Asteria setup earlier, which you said, if you know Linda Carter and you know her famous looks, you know the eyes, they punch in on the eyes. It's like, who could this be?
Yeah, that's cool. But yeah, so that's it. Wonder Woman 84. We did it.
Good job. We did it.
I think we moved pretty well. It was pretty concise. It's still a long pod, but we've been doing good. So let's do the 3 questions and move right along. But before we do that, I want to pitch you my third Wonder Woman installment.
Bring it on.
Briefly.
Bring me go fully crazy, man. I want to hear it.
Briefly, there is a classic Wonder Woman comic story and they handle it in an episode of the Justice League called Paradise Lost. Have you ever heard of this?
I think I have. Yeah, I've heard of this trade.
The Dark Wizard, or Felix Faust, is able to make a deal with Hades, the god of the underworld, to essentially turn all of Gyrans into stone. And right before that happens, one of them sends out a distress signal to Diana. And this is the first time that she's returned to Themyscira as an adult, and she gets back and everybody's wiped out. And she has to go on a journey to the underworld to make a deal with Hades to bring all of her sisters back. I think it'd be really cool if you did like something with Diana and Asteria, or maybe even Diana and Barbara, if you make Barbara a good guy this time around, almost like Thor and Loki and Ragnarok kind of teaming up a little bit, where you do the Paradise Lost thing so that we get back to Themyscira. You can have her mom, who I think is a great actress, Connie Nielsen, adventures of her like with the Greek mystical parts of it, because she spent a lot of time dealing with American foreign policy. Like, let's get back to the Themysciran roots, have her go on a journey into the underworld. You can almost make it kind of like a campy road trip movie into the underworld, like Hercules almost, you know? It's just kind of like crazy. But if you're going to bring back Steve Trevor, the only way that I think would be if she's in the underworld and she sees him like in the underworld, you know?
Ooh, that's cool. I like this a lot. Yeah. So
yeah.
Wonder Woman.
And you could.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, this is set post Justice League. Would be where I set the third Wonder Woman installment. So, because if you do it that way, you could have, because a big part of that comic story and Justice League story, actually, and I don't know if they need to do this, but Wonder Woman gets Batman's help with his, detective knowledge to get linked up with the other DC hero, Zatanna, the wizard, who's great. Maybe this is the movie that you introduce Zatanna, and it's Wonder Woman and Zatanna going to the underworld. But if you set it in the modern time, you can use the other DC characters that you need for that story, like Affleck or Zatanna or something.
Yeah. But
I would love it, just like a really campy, crazy action beat 'em up in the underworld with Gal Gadot and Linda Carter. And, you can have cameos because the people there are already dead. So, like, you can have a Robin Wright scene or something like that. And then you have the showdown with Hades. You can have the Hades be the final boss, or Felix Faust, or both. I would love if they got my guy Michael Fassbender to be Felix Faust. I think that'd be really interesting.
So here's what I'll say.
My pitch. That's my pitch.
I like that one. I like the pitch. I think it's a brilliant. I would invest that. I would put money behind that project for sure.
Not going to do it.
Here's what I bet. And write this down, Radiovania fans. Write this down. Wonder Woman 3 will be in the 90s. Because they don't have an original. They don't have an original idea left in their body. They're just gonna They're gonna pull a Captain Marvel, and they're gonna be like, "All right, Wonder Woman's gone one more decade. She's in the 90s, and I bet you it takes place in like fucking." They've been to Britain. They've been to London. They've been to the Washington D.C. Now I bet they go to like Japan. I bet they go to Tokyo.
But why? Because they've done that in the Wolverine.
Why not?
There's nothing there in the 90s that I can think of that's like you need an inciting reason to be in that place in the 90s.
Or they don't do anything with it. They didn't do anything with the 80s shit. They didn't do anything.
They did the Cold War.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're right, but I think you should just go ahead and plop it back in the present day and bookend it that way, because I'm sick of the thing where everyone's supposed to not know who she is and she keeps exposing herself to the entire world. So that's my idea. I think that would be great. You could make that story of a journey into the underworld much more like Ragnarok, because you can have all these wacky, crazy monsters and things played by like fucking Danny DeVito and shit. I don't know.
Here's a quick question. Do you think
there's a realm of possibilities where you can make the underworld tied to the multiverse, and we get like Zods down there, fucking Jack Nicholson's Joker's down there. Like, you could get wild with it, and it'd be awesome.
Breaking news. Every DC movie from now on is just Flashpoint.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Let's do the 3 questions. So your favorite scene is the mall scene?
I think it's either that or it's the literally the one scene of Pedro Pascal giving that guy the thumbs up for 2 minutes. But yeah, I think the mall scene is just so what I wanted this movie to be, which is a little bit cheesy, a little bit goofy, like heartwarming, play into the 80s aesthetic, play into that sort of time period, play into the innocence of it, action-packed Sam Raimi style comic book movie. That's what I wanted. And so that scene to me is the best part of the movie.
I agree. That was my favorite. My follow-up, I guess, for diversity would probably be the Smithsonian and like the fish out of water sequence.
Yeah, that's a good one.
The fashion trying on stuff. All right, who won the movie?
Pedro Pascal.
This is an interesting one. I was going to say
slam dunk.
Pedro Pascal. I think we had Gal winning the first one, or Patty Jenkins. I think a case could be made that they still both win because they already got announced that they get a third go. But I think for this one installment, it's him. And it's last year, let's be honest, was the year of the Pedro, because between this and Mando, he's just crushing it.
Yeah.
So
I can't in good conscience give this award to Patty Jenkins because I think the writing of this movie is just so god awful. But I do think that her directing is good. So it's difficult. Like, man, I wish they would have just given the script to somebody else. Like,
yeah,
she's a competent director, but like the writing in this movie, if it's any indication of what the third one's going to be like, it's just like, oh no. And I didn't even like
bonus question: who lost the movie? The guy who got raped, definitely. And that actor who plays the guy that Stephen habits, his character is credited as handsome man. So he doesn't even get a name.
Really? Is that what it's credited as?
Doesn't even get a name in this
That's
movie.
crazy. Who lost this movie? The fans. We lost again. We keep getting fucked around.
Oh, they got us. All right, ratings and rankings. This is gonna be interesting.
Oh boy. All right. Well, so I would feel remiss if I didn't bring up Rotten Tomatoes, because I feel like we need to get like a barometer. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
When was the last time you looked up the reviews for this? Or have you even looked it up?
It was crossed back into fresh barely. Like, I think it's like a 6 critics and probably 75 for fans.
Yeah, so right now it's sitting at a 60% review critic with 391 reviews, and then a 74% audience score. Oh boy. I don't know, man. What are you feeling? Can you lead this one off?
So yeah, I would rate it as probably probably close So like between a 6.5 and a 7.
I think I'm going to go 6.
Yeah. I think
I'd go 6.
I think it's fun. Definitely enjoy watching it, especially when I have fingertips. I'll watch it a couple more times, because there are parts of it that I really like, but it's definitely not the best showing from the DCEU. And if we're placing it somewhere in our rankings, I'm trying to decide if I think it's...
so our ratings so far, number 1, Shazam. Number 2, Wonder Woman. Number 3, Man of Steel. Number 4, Birds of Prey. Number 5, Aquaman. Number 6, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. Number 7, Justice League. And number 8, Suicide Squad. And you're wrestling with it to be where? Because I think I'm wrestling with the same thing.
I think it's between Birds of Prey and Aquaman.
Really?
What are you thinking?
I don't know if I want it to be above or below Aquaman.
So I'm trying to decide if I think it's above Aquaman. You're trying to decide if it's between BVS and Aquaman.
Yes.
Do you like Birds of Prey better in this movie?
Totally. Yes. Birds of Prey is a much better film all around. Like I think it's below that for sure.
I think it's a more cohesive vision.
Yes. What I'm wrestling with is that Aquaman.
I like this.
Aquaman had more fun. Aquaman had more fun consistently laughing at the movie.
Yeah, but the villains are atrocious in Aquaman, and at least they're more enjoyable characters in this movie. I think this should be better than Aquaman. There's some really bad. There's some bad acting in Aquaman. That's the other thing too. Is at least none of the performers are bad in this movie for the most part.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the story.
If I'm going Max Lord and the Cheetah over Black Manta and Ocean Master, I gotta go with at least the Pedro weight alone is gonna want me to watch this movie some more.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that Aquaman is so much more creative a movie. Like the vision it has is so like.
That's true. It is very original.
It's just so original and creative, and it's a cobbled mess, and it's long, and it's too long. Both of these movies are like, I wish I could tie them, to be honest, because there's things I hate and love about both of them. But Aquaman to me is at least, it commits to being like a goofy, dumb bro superhero with Aquaman, and it has some cheesy, funny stuff in it. It's got a lot of great. I do think it has a few great performances. I think Willem Dafoe is great. I think that Boba Fett is really good. I think that Patrick Wilson is overdoing it, but I think that that's like kind of his direction. And I just think that like as an action movie, like both of these movies are action movies, and Aquaman is just a better action movie to me. Like the trench. All the visuals with the trench and the war at the end.
The trench.
I love the fight scene in Italy is just so engaging and cool looking. Like I didn't think any of the action in Wonder Woman was like very visually appealing. Like there's some cool stuff with the gold suit and the lightning, but like, I don't know. I think that Wonder Woman loses it for me just because it's so boring. Like there's so many stretches of boring stuff happening, and at least Aquaman keeps my interest for most of it. I do agree that Pedro Pascal is a better villain, but I don't know. I don't know, man.
Can't pick. They're both good for some parts, and they're both bad for some parts. So,
yeah, I think for me, it's just hard because we can't do a majority votes. We can't do a majority, ranking because we're a 2-party system here, but.
I'll tell you what, since we were able to go with my route and have Wonder Woman be better than Man of Steel in the rankings, I will concede this one and not put up much of a fight because I don't feel that passionately about the 84.
Yeah.
So I'm good with that. So behind Aquaman.
So then the list would be as it goes now: Shazam, Wonder Woman, Man of Steel, Birds of Prey, Aquaman, Wonder Woman 84, Batman v Superman, Justice League, Suicide Squad. What a list of films.
Yeah. The Aquaman Down is just like, on a given day, I could love one of those movies besides Suicide Squad. And on another day, I could just be like, fuck you, movie.
Yeah.
I think our top 4 is pretty good, though, if I do say so myself. I know you still disagree about the Man of Steel one, but maybe we should just call the A and 2B so that we can sleep at night. But
that's the thing.
Is that top 4, we definitely got the top 4 right. Those are the top 4 movies for sure.
Yeah, I think that the Wonder Woman Man of Steel thing is like, yeah, I think Man of Steel is a better movie or whatever, but like I didn't have the passion to argue it. With Aquaman and Wonder Woman 84, it's like they're like of the same caliber. Like,
so just popcorn
literally
munchies.
this, yeah. They're like, I don't know. What we should do is we should put on Aquaman and Wonder Woman 84 and press play at the same time on two TVs side by side and just see which TV we look at more, you know?
Interesting. One of them has Amber Heard in it though, so that's going to be distracting. Yeah.
Okay. So that's our DCEU list as of now. The next film on the list will be what's next?
The Suicide Squad.
The Suicide Squad.
Actually, no. Snyder Cut.
Oh yeah, that's right.
March,
so Snyder Cut in
the
March.
Suicides.
So
the question I wanted to ask you is: do we have to rank the Snyder Cut as a separate movie entirely? Because I think we should.
A totally separate film. Yeah. I also think that if we have the time, we should try and do Joker and revisit that.
It's not DCEU though.
I think it is. I think it still counts.
I don't.
It's the extended universe.
But if you make that argument, then that means that the Matt Reeves Batman is part of it too, which I think he's trying very hard to distance that from it.
We'll see.
Because like if we're including Joker, then Joker's the best. It's the best made movie. It's horrifying as fuck, but that's clearly number one. There's no need to debate it. Wow. I really don't want to have to dissect that plot because I'll just get sad.
Well, we'll see. Maybe one of these days. Maybe we can do Joker and then the Matt Reeves Batman movies and call that like a series.
Well, if it's the DC Extended Universe, then we have to do all the Tim Burton movies and the Nolan movies and Christopher Reeves.
No. The DC Extended Universe starts at Man of Steel and goes until they say it's over.
Okay.
The Christopher Nolan universe is over. Yeah, the Christopher Nolan universe is over. The Tim Burton era is over. And right now we're living in the DCEU, and it's not over until the fat lady sings.
All right. We'll talk about it, but
yeah.
I think we both know where the Joker would land. It's an Academy Award-winning film, so sure, it's clearly the best.
So is Suicide Squad is also an Academy Award-winning film, so don't forget that.
I'm going to hang up this call. Let's keep talking about that.
All right. Thank you all for watching. It's been a journey. Thank you for following along. Please keep your eyes peeled to your podcast service of choice because we will be doing the news roundup show for December and January soon, very, very soon. Lots to talk about. Until then, I'm Zach Rotello at Zach Rotello on Twitter. Follow the show at radiovania.com and Radiovania on most social medias. And John, can you end with a little Wonder Woman quote today?
Radiovania is good, but it can be better.
Yes, it can be better.